Planning Board Architectural Review Meeting. Wish everybody a Happy New Year. We'd also like to thank Joe Clark, John Fry, and Walter Ludlam for the many years of service. They were recognized earlier in the month for their many years of service at Austin, a better place for their time here. And on that note, I'd like to welcome David, Michael, and Robert as new members of our board. Welcome. Thank you for volunteering. Austin's a better place for our volunteer spirit and having you guys here. So, with that said, we can get right into the agenda. Austin Children's Center is also a Board of Architectural Review and Planning Board matter, so we could hear both of those at the Planning Board slot. Austin Land LLC, I'm thinking the same thing. We'll basically discuss that at the Planning Board level. If there's any news, Tracy, Stewart, anything, they're here tonight, or?
They are here.
Okay, good enough. All right, so we'll open up the Board of Architectural Review. First application is 1217 49 Spring Street.
That's adjourned?
Well, we gotta
Oh, that's right, the BR is gonna happen.
Okay, JB?
Yep. I didn't think we were doing this one tonight.
Okay. It's up there though, Jim.
Yeah,
Is it up there?
Third from the bottom.
Right, there was a zoning board meeting that we didn't have a quorum, I think, earlier in the month.
Yeah,
Correct,
Right.
So whatever is queued up there had to wait another month, I guess, right?
Right.
correct.
right. What we wanted to do is kind of go over the last time we were in front of this board and presented this project. Before we went to the zoning board, there were some changes that we made in anticipation of getting this approved for the zoning board. And that's, if we go to the next page. I don't know if, it's not gonna work there.
No, it doesn't.
We have, what we've done is reduce the footprint of the building. Used to go all the way to the property line. Now we have a setback of 8 feet against the aqueduct. And then if you, so there you can see we have 2 retail spaces downstairs and some storage area. And we still have the same number of apartments, but reduce the number of bedrooms in order to reduce the parking. Originally, when we were in front of you, in front of the board, we needed 30 parking spaces. We're now down to 20. And just the elevation for the BAR. So that's we introduced some break on the side of the building. It used to be all one flat piece. The lower, the right elevation is the one you will be seeing down from Spring Street. It used to be all one long surface because it's the end of the property line. So we introduced some indentation, 3 feet indentation in order to accommodate some windows in that area so it can be seen better. And the top elevation you see, I think that was one of the requests even from this board. We are showing 49 Spring Street next to it, so you can compare and see how the 2 buildings kind of go along. Or we're kind of trying to use the same design that it was done for 49 Spring Street. And that's very much, we're still waiting. We had hoped that we'll get an approval or some sort of decision this month's CBA, but it was canceled, rescheduled, I guess lack of, we didn't have enough members.
Correct.
Yes. So we're hoping to come back next month and be able to go over this with the zoning board of approval.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're not really gonna work much more than just BR tonight. Obviously, we can't approve it without the zoning board and the planning board approval, so I could open up the board. Any questions, comments?
I'm still concerned about the amount of space between the 2 buildings. I know that there's an issue about being able to maximize the use of space and getting most apartments and space and square footage, but I don't know if you have any more comments to that, because that was one of the things that was raised here.
We did, if you go back to the floor plan, we are 5 feet away from the property line on that side, or 3 feet away, 3.5 feet. And we introduced those indentations in the design in order to kind of break, so it won't be one long piece. So on the right side, we are against the property line, but when it's against the other building, we did move it, I believe it's 3 feet, 5 feet.
So this is the kind of the corridor that we're talking about here?
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
And the purpose of that is what, access to the back, and what's the?
Access to the back and to have some space between the two buildings.
I mean, because the windows are still there on the existing building, and
Yes.
They are gonna stay. So if you understand it correctly, if we just look at it, that people will, I mean, I know that the bays that are, the inverted bays in the new building will have, I think frosted windows, you were
Frosted
mentioning?
window, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's not gonna be an ability to look straight in, but you're not changing the windows in the existing building. So,
No,
because
no.
I understand that completely. So, but there is going to be now a change, so just so that you are aware of it, there's going to be a change between a building that has, well, all apartments who are on the south side will have sun and full view over the bus stop area and down Spring. They will no longer have that. And they will look into a frosted window. How many feet across? 8 feet across.
Yes.
So that is what you, I just want to put it out, I'm not saying it's good or bad, I just want you to know that that is what the proposal is about. And I know that we had concerns about that apart from the setback from the aqueduct. So if you,
Well, to that, I mean, even if we created a 10-foot or a 15-foot, you're still gonna see another building when you look at it.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
completely understand that. I know that it's not an easy, it's not an easy thing to, I
Right.
just want to make sure that we don't have anyone on this board coming back and say, oh, I didn't understand that, I didn't
Totally,
realize that.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm bringing it to everyone's attention so that when we actually are going to make decisions on it, that we really understand what that.
And I saw two elevations, is that the south side
Right.
and the street side, right?
Yes.
So certainly make sure that we have an elevation, even though it's sort of an alleyway.
Yes, we will,
The rear elevation as well.
okay.
Did you say change the setback against the aqueduct? 'Cause I don't know if our new members know exactly what the variance is. I know we're not, the variance is front of the ZBA, but I don't know if they know.
Right, there is Austin is one of the municipalities that has a regulation about how far we can build, how close to the aqueduct we can be. And it's 25 feet that you can build, you can put a foundation, you can put a building. And we are actually 8 feet. Originally, we were touching it, like the other buildings. Most of the buildings in the area come very close to it. But having the discussions with the zoning board of appeals and go and listen to some of the concern, we moved the whole building 8 feet. So we reduced the footprint and the size of the apartment that we were using.
Okay.
Do you want me to clarify what the old Croton, does everyone know what the old Croton Aqueduct is? It's a New York State park and it's on the National Historic Register. It's the original aqueduct to New York City for drinking water. And it's also a trail system.
I'm just a little unclear exactly where this building is in terms of, it's downtown.
Just so you
It's brought
know,
up on Google Maps.
Yep, here we go.
the police court facility, it's basically
I think
Oh,
that
just down the
the
street
sheet
there,
Where I
on the
think it is.
corner of Waller Ave and Spring Street.
Where does the aqueduct run in
Aqu-
relation to?
The aqueduct.
Oh, that's an
Uh-huh.
interesting.
You know, our tiny Flatiron building, as we call it, our little tiny building that has
Oh, yeah.
a hair salon, I mean, it's totally pointed. It's running behind there between that and the fire built house, and then it keeps going up behind the row of buildings and the bus stop. Then it crosses over by, right where Main and Street and Church splits. and then it keeps going, and then meanders high and on the western side of the community center.
Bob, you want to say something?
Yeah, if I may. My name is Robert Corky. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I've submitted to this board quite a while ago some information regarding the aqueduct and the aqueduct trail, and asked a question at my first meeting as to what was the zoning board referring when it said that it must be 25 feet from the aqueduct. There are two entities. I became more information than you ever want to know about it. And I love the aqueduct because I used to live on that side of town and walked it to the train all the time. There are two things. One is the Croton Aqueduct Trail, and that runs from the Bronx right up to the aqueduct in Croton. There are some breakages in it, but it's a state park that was purchased in the 80s. I think I submitted all this information to either this board or the zoning board or both. Another piece of construction, historic construction, is the actual aqueduct, which was built 100 years earlier and took the water from the Croton Aqueduct all the way down to the city of New York and was a major factor in the development of the city of New York. It's not used in that aspect any longer. However, the Croton Aqueduct, the actual aqueduct, does not follow the Croton State Park path. All right, it is when you're walking on that aqueduct path behind this property on Spring Street, you are not walking on the aqueduct. You know where you're walking on the aqueduct? On Spring Street.
That's actually not true. The aqueduct actually follows the right-of-way.
Again, I'm going to defer.
I've worked with New York City watershed planning and historic
Again,
preservation.
I'll defer
and
to
trails
the
a long
state
time.
maps that were submitted to the
They
village.
don't agree with that either.
Let's
So-
stay kind of germane to the
Yes.
architectural
Let's-
aspects. I don't want to
yes. And
get
the
too far off
setbacks
in the
are what
site
they are.
plan. That's
And
further.
again, I've submitted to this board and to the zoning board the actual maps of where the aqueduct is located. And you will see, if you look at those maps, that the aqueduct varies greatly from the trail in many aspects, going from the Bronx all the way up. There are areas where it's not anywhere near the trail. And that was done because of how it was constructed and how it was constructed at the time. There are two separate entities. The historic aspect is the actual aqueduct and not the state park. They are two separate entities, and I think I submitted to the zoning board the actual implementation of legislation to have that done. So our
Okay,
position,
so hopefully then in February, when
we'll have an
the
issue.
board is
But-
That will be done with that.
sitting,
Yes.
you guys will have the opportunity
But
to
that, the reason,
make that same
yes.
discussion with them.
The setbacks, again, our position are not mandated by the statute, by the zoning statute, because they say from the aqueduct. The aqueduct's on Spring Street, and obviously, we're not moving those buildings. Also, those of us who are familiar with that area of the aqueduct know that it's fairly arbitrary. There are buildings that abut the actual trail. There are those that are set back. There are high, you go through the Maple housing. It's totally different than it is in other areas. And as you go further down, if you get to Waller Avenue, you'll say, well, what happened to the trail? It's not there. Well, it's under Spring Street. There is no trail down there because the aqueduct, is under Spring Street. Right? It's not under a trail. And actually, the aqueduct goes down Maple, makes a left onto Spring. And that's where the plans from the state clearly indicate the location of the aqueduct. So I just want to make clear what we're talking about and where we're talking, not interfering with the aqueduct. The trail, again, I don't believe that the building
But
does it. It's
I
not.
think the question was, which particular zoning board variances were you seeking? I mean, I don't think we need to go
Right.
through.
Yeah.
You're seeking a variance,
With regard to the buffer involving
Yes,
that.
And
it's 25-foot
And
setback.
there's a
that's-
trail that runs behind this property.
And that's
Right.
pending before the ZBA now.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's from the aqueduct, the
So-
right-of-way.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's a very, thank you for that. That's a very good picture. If you want to be familiar with the site, that's a very good, right where, I guess, barber shop
This is the project site.
That's the site.
That's the bus stop shelter area.
All right, I mean, if there's nothing else from the board,
Right.
open it up to the public.
Okay, thank you.
So, nothing from the public, so I guess we'll just adjourn this till February, pending your time over at the zoning board.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so, again, Austin Children's Center is also a planning board agenda item, so we'll wait to get the planning board for that. BAR 1618, Otis Curtis, 78 Prospect Ave.
That's adjourned,
Okay.
also due to ZBA.
Moving right along, 21 Edward Street, application 1-19.
That's adjourned because the mailing wasn't completed properly.
Okay. Essentially, that's just a reconstruction from fire damage, right?
Correct. It's the house directly across the street from the Park School.
So we'll be looking at that next month also. Okay. Next application, Stephen Kuhn, Susan Landon, BAR 2-19, 6 Piping Rock Drive. JB?
This is a simple project. What we're proposing to do is just the construction of a portico. Because of the location of the portico and the way the zoning is stipulated, we needed to have a ARB approval. So as you can tell, this is a regular roof, and we're just adding, if you can go down a little bit. Yeah, you can see the details of the portico. It's a very small portico. It's going to be white columns. So those are the detail of construction. Very much a straightforward portico.
Photos of the house, typically in the
I think
past,
we
we would
did.
get
Could
some photos, or?
I would like to know, do you have a side view of this? I know that the gable that faces the street goes out past and covers the landing. But do you have a side view from the other side, just to see how it projects? How far into and past, I mean, the portico projects?
No, we didn't provide a side view. We just had a front view and a section of the, it does not, I mean, it's,
And I see it's not projecting further than like 6 feet, and it's just outside of the.
it doesn't
of the
project
wall.
further. There's a jog on the,
Right.
there's a jog on the building. The column is at the line, almost at the line with the building. Because, I don't know if you can see any of that.
For our new members, we like to get elevations, front, side yard, rear. Portico, it's only 3 sides, so,
Yeah, it,
Yeah.
but it's helpful. And that's why it's a picture
Yeah.
too. A lot of times we'll get photos with the submission to give you guys context of, well, that's what the house looks like now. Materials, like colors,
Color's gonna
matching.
be white trim, everything is matching. I think I will. If you can have it.
Yep.
I don't know
Were
if
they in
we
the
have a
file?
photo.
It's pretty simple.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
yeah.
Other than side view, you okay with that, Ty?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's gonna protrude, I think it's in proportion.
Okay.
I've seen some that were not in proportion, and I think this is fine.
Good, no, this is a nice addition. Open up to the public. Sure it is.
Any intention of having outdoor lighting?
At this point, I don't think there is. Just a light underneath,
Like a recessed light or
yeah,
something.
recessed light, yeah. There's no other light proposed at this time.
Okay. Anyone else on board?
Yeah. For motion to approve it?
Call for motion to approve?
We want to see if there's anyone in the
I
public.
was just gonna say, anyone from the public that want to chime in? That being said, I'd like to call for a motion.
Yeah, I'll call the motion to
Ty,
approve it.
second, Jeff second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And next application is Raphael Triana, 6 Narragansett. JV visiting.
Do you need a high school or something?
We have a separate calendar.
Yeah. This project has been, because we do have a picture of the, this is one of those projects that has been approved several times over the years, and there should be one more picture. There we go. So the only change that we have from the original approval, that this was on the side where the window is, and when you see the picture, they used the porch to wrap around, which don't have the porch wrapping around, as in the original proposal. So that was the original house with the porch, and this is what the house looks like, the way it was built. So this is one a change that happened during construction, and in order to finalize the project, we needed to get the approval for that change, which was eliminating the side porch.
And remind me, how long ago did we approve this?
You approved this is like another of those projects, you approved I think this would be the third approval, this project. The project was approved to rebuild the porch, then it was approved enclosing the porch, then we went back to keeping the porch as it was. And then during construction, the site where the window is, there we go.
Sorry. I mean, I think there's a big, this is an as-is. You were going to ask us for that, right? And you originally had, I mean, I'd like to have seen in this package, because no one here around this table have seen the first and approved.
I believe if you go back to the matter, because that's when we provided a picture of
There
it.
is, well, picture is one thing, but not plans.
Right, I think this.
Where is the approved plans with a wraparound?
No, those we don't have in part of this.
Right, so
Yeah,
that's
okay.
what was approved initially.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's a big difference between a wraparound porch, whether it's with a curve or square, whatever, and a porch that just sits pretty much in from two sides. Architecturally, that's a very big difference to me. And I would like to have seen the original plans.
Okay,
I don't think I can approve this as is. I'd like to see it. I'd like to evaluate that in elevation from both the front and the sides. And because it's very easy to do as is,
yes,
but, it's done, and then we just put a blue stamp everything. But I don't think this is in keeping with what the house was, and probably not in keeping with what it was approved, how it was approved, and what conditions the previous board members approved.
So going forward, I think it's important, bring in the prior approval, especially with BR, what it should have looked like and
Right.
where we are now, so that we avoid this sort of disconnect between, what we looked
I
at
thought
4 or
the
5 years ago.
Sorry,
where it
when you
was.
say wrapped around the original plans, it wrapped around,
no, it was recessed. It was just, the porch was, there was a porch, there was a recessed porch that where the window is, there was a second.
on the right.
Yeah,
But it was connected
yes.
Yeah, so,
with columns like you have over there,
It's in this one.
in the
Yeah,
original.
yeah.
Yeah.
so that's what
That's what you're
removed.
missing,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
So initially, it was going to be rebuilt almost as it was originally, with some modifications.
Again, when you're looking at this project, the original approval, they were even enclosed in the porch, so we were losing the whole porch idea. Then we went back to keeping the porch, and during construction, I don't know if the plans here, during construction, for some reason, they couldn't build the rear, they had to rebuild the whole thing. That house sat for a while, the original owner had started the work, and it sat there for many years, and then somebody, she bought it not long ago, and they decided to rebuild the porch. The porch hadn't, if you've driven by there, that picture that you see is like 7, 8 years old at least. That's why I had to go back to be able to find the old porch when it was, because it hasn't been part of the house for a long time.
They've sat vacant for a really long time, really dilapidated.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate what has been done, and I'm not saying that I'm against this here, but I'm just thinking as a course of action,
No, I
we should
totally,
know
right, I totally.
what was originally approved. Yeah.
So would you like for the next meeting, Kaya, you want to see the prior application?
Yeah,
and-
because
and the
there's really
approved
nothing
plans?
holding this up except for the CFO, right? It's already in use, it's
Right,
already
this
been
is
done.
done. I mean, this is, you drive by there.
It's done, so, yeah.
Right, and now that they have a closing this house for sale, so I'm not
Right,
sure.
so nothing is holding up the owners in terms of use.
Yeah.
Oh, no, this house is, they're doing a closing.
There's a pending sale on it.
Just a pending sale on it, so,
It's a pending sale.
yes.
I understand that there, that historically there was a wraparound there, but I think this is a huge improvement.
That looks fine.
I'm fine with the way aesthetically it looks, standing on its own. I mean, maybe, I think from like how far deep we go into these things with BAR, I'm okay with it, but
I mean, if there's a pending sale, I'm not gonna stand in the way of that. Definitely not.
But you're here enough to know that
Yeah,
we
no,
have
listen, I mean.
an approval
that's
from 4 or 5 years ago. Just bring those
Right,
that
but
approved
even
drawing back. so
finding
that
those
we can
records
compare.
then kinda, like I said, I know that at one point there was an enclosed portico, but we will, for future, we will try to find. And we have another project tonight too, that we did kind of the history of the project, just to make sure we all understand where we are, so.
Anyone else from the board? Comments?
Just curious. In the first photograph, you see boiler stack, and you don't see it on the other in your new drawings. And also, do you see on your floor plan showing where a boiler stack is coming up?
I'm not sure, I think they did a direct event now with the new mechanic. I don't
Talking about the
think,
chimney?
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
Maybe they have direct vents.
yeah, I think they removed
It's
it.
not shown on the floor plan.
No,
where
I
it
think
can
they
come up.
removed that, yeah.
Typically with the BR applications, we're gonna look at finishes, how they either are too similar or too dissimilar to what's in the adjoining neighborhood. We wanna see the elevations, the floor size, wanna see photos. Those are all things that sort of help us to move the application along. Materials, exactly. We don't necessarily delve into the interior finishes that much. I mean, we kind of look at footprint a little bit and whatnot. It's really, we're looking at how the outside of the structure is going to
I
look.
was mostly concerned about the exterior.
Yes, yeah, that's true. I mean, you have a chimney there and you don't have one here. Okay. Open it up to the public for any comment or questions or? Okay, so being that no one's speaking to this application from the public, I call for a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Jeff, you have a second? Robert, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our BAR portion of the agenda. We're gonna pretty much go right into the planning board now. Do we want to circle back and do Austin Children's Center, or do you want to, where are we with
Why don't we do those two public hearings, we have the Children's Center, then we have the Hudson stuff,
Okay.
and then we can talk.
All right, call up Austin Children's Center, please. And just if you would, for the record, your name and.
We should get it up on the board too, right?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
good,
please.
sorry.
Second.
Which one?
What's the latest one? Let's see. The site plan submission, I guess. That's all the drawings. Yeah. The other one's the letters.
That's the one we got in the packet, is it the 7th?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the latest conformed set that incorporates all the updates. So my name's Travis Chanel with KG&D Architects, representing Austin Children's Center. And there's some new faces here. That's great. So just a little background. I think this is our 6th meeting in front of you guys and our 3rd public hearing. And we're looking at the new construction of a 27,500 square foot children's center, 14 classrooms ranging from infants all the way up to 12-year-olds, 3 stories, and there's several play areas that kind of terrace down the hillside. Let's see, the last submission we made on the 7th, we were addressing several issues, including the Kellard Sessions memo, which we actually discussed at our last meeting, but this was a formal response. We addressed parking again and bus traffic. So we'll go over each one of those. And the general goal here, we're looking for further direction and hoping to close the public hearing. We haven't received a comment to date from any members of the public, and to pass a draft resolution, or at least give us clear guidance on how we can achieve that. So let's go through with the parking. We submitted, the owner has submitted 2 agreements.
Could you, just for our new members?
Yes, sure.
Just explain how many parking spaces you need,
Yes,
and then how you're gonna achieve that so that they understand, because I think that was something
That
we
was.
had going back and forth about.
so we need 61 spaces required for zoning. Currently on site, I think we originally had 18. We're down to 15 because there's no exceptions in zoning for compact spaces, and we had to meet a parking, an aisle of 24 feet. So we had to eliminate 3 spots to be officially counted. So we have 15 on site. In addition, the owner has received 2 agreements, one with the neighbor across the street. The agreement is for 30 spaces. However, after looking at it from a civil and planning point of view, it's really best to fit 12 spaces there. That doesn't require curb cut, doesn't impede on the current operation of the property. And then down the street further, we have an agreement for 40 spaces from the Star of Bethlehem Church. And the owner will either set up a carpool or a bus service to shuttle. What's the distance between the 2?
There's actually a
distance.
There's actually a picture in the packet on,
Yes, we can go to drawing
yeah,
C900.
there's a good map, but it's a little further down the street, it's actually.
It is a little further down. Maybe it's a half a mile, you say?
So when there's not enough parking on site, we're working through acquiring spaces through lease, through other parcels, you know, some adjacent, some further down Spring Street.
The
And those
last.
40 spots will only be used for Austin Children's Center, nowhere else?
Essentially. And
Yes.
And the key here too is that we don't want
Right
these
here.
spots that are getting rented from these other sites to knock those sites into a non-conformity. So this is always the challenge with, you know, having a shortage of parking on site. So we're gonna be, I don't know if we've gotten the leases or you guys are anywhere near.
Yeah, we submitted both agreements.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
And in fact, Mr. Chair, at the last planning board hearing, it had been requested that notice be provided to the residents in the vicinity of the Star of Bethlehem. That was done by the manager's office.
Okay, because there's impact there too. I mean,
So Star of Bethlehem, we're not adding any spots at Star of Bethlehem. They're existing
Yeah.
spaces that aren't used really during the time period that OCC is in operation.
I mean, my concern about this is more people who live on State Street and some in between, because if people show up to Ossing Children's Center and there's not enough parking because you only have so many spaces on site, my concern is that that overflow parks on the street as opposed to actually using the site that's not a short walk.
So that's
it's a
fair.
long walk.
The off-site parking is going to be saved for employees of Ossing. There's always going to be spaces available on-site for visitors dropping off for dismissal, and for during the day, there'll always be spaces. There might be 3 spaces saved for staff or on one section, but there's always going to be the whole north part of the site. This portion here is going to be left open for visitors. Additionally, with this bus drop-off lane, there'll be availability there to park a couple cars along the curb that are quick visits
Okay.
when the buses
How
aren't
many
there.
staff would you have on a typical
Is it
day?
50, Howard? About 50?
Yes, about 50.
So there'd be 50, and so that would, if all the staff are using the Star Bethlehem lot, that means, you know, if that, I don't know if that many people actually drive to work, but if there's that many staff, that's helpful to hear, and if you're gonna have shuttle service or something, that, because my concern is, again, on State Street, not so much, you know, impacts further away.
Yeah,
My
the goal
concern
is
the
not
over-
to have.
Essentially the overflow, if your lot is full, where do those people go?
The goal is not to have visitors parking off-site.
Yeah.
That is the goal. And Howard, you can speak. Oh.
We have 2 agreements.
Can you state your name for the record,
I'm
please?
sorry, Howard Milbert, I'm the executive director of the Ossining Children's Center. And right now, we have 2 agreements, one with 5 Broad Holding, and also with Star. Star is going to house majority of our staff parking. So that should work out very well, because right now, their parking lot is empty during the day. So we're making good use of that.
I mean, it might be preempting, you know, a solution or control of this, but maybe there could be, you know, with the village office, there could be set up some kind of a sticker, identification sticker that says, we are from the village, we are from the Children's Center, so that when there are people parking in Star of Bethlehem or on the street or across the street by the roller factory, at least the parking people, enforcement will know who they are. I mean, it's one way to sort of alleviate that people are just parking in a space that really should be for residents on
Yeah.
State Street.
I mean, the good practices is them issuing
Yeah.
permits or managing it themselves. That's the whole point of the
Right.
exercise here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would be amenable to this, or if you have any proposal for signage that clearly denotes those spaces that you just pointed out that are on-site as visitor parking, or something that would,
Sure.
something like that.
Yep, we
Yeah,
can do that for sure.
would- yeah. Just so that there's something, you know, physically in that space
Mhm.
going forward. Yeah.
And having the cars tagged is an excellent idea.
Yeah, yeah.
So with that number, we exceed the 61 requirement. We're hoping that satisfies planning board's requirements. Howard is in further discussions with the U.S. Post Office down the street for longer-term options and additional churches, places of worship. But these are the 2 agreements that have been secured so far that get us to the requirement.
And I believe staff spent time with transportation,
Yeah.
school transportation. I guess talk to that, because that's really the other big component
Yep.
here, this dropping off and managing that traffic down there.
Correct, yes, we met last week with Tracy Planning Department and the Police Department and the school district transportation head. And they were all actually in love with the new plan because it removes 13 buses off of Highland Avenue that were dedicating their stops to the old Children's Center. That's a heavier used road than State Street. With the location on State Street, it ends up incorporating most of the existing routes stopping. And there's really, I think there's adding, we submitted a letter from the head of transportation for the school district. I think that was submitted today. I don't know if everyone got it, but essentially they're adding just 3 buses for the pre-K service onto State Street. So the police were very excited that we were freeing up traffic on Highland Avenue. And additionally,
And
the
on-
schedules,
and-
yes.
And Wilton as well.
yes, right.
And I think that's
the
a
second
really
location.
choke point for the high
Right.
school.
So, and now everyone's gonna be entering the site heading south, and they'll be exiting heading south. So it's all right-hand turns, they won't be crossing traffic. We're able to queue 2 to 3 buses on site, which works. In the back of the letter, it shows you the timing of all the buses, and they're all staggered. So they don't expect at max 3 buses there at the same time, and that would be at max.
So when you say buses, these are the full-size bus?
It's a mixture. I don't know if you went into details with the half and, yeah, but let's say they're full-size buses. There is a mix, but it definitely leans towards the full-size buses.
Another big part is that, staff is gonna be there to facilitate
Yep, correct.
getting on, getting off, managing that whole movement of traffic and.
But Howard can speak to that. It's a pretty quick
It
turnaround.
takes, we do it very quickly. We're used to operating very quickly on South Highland. And we're actually going to be eliminating quite a few buses. We have 13 buses now, and we're going down to 3 down over at our new site.
For the pre-K.
For the pre-K.
Yeah.
For the pre-K. So that's going to be a considerable change.
So then, in addition to the parking and the bus traffic, the other one was the Keller Sessions memo. So I don't know if we want to go through line by line on that, or if we're okay with that.
Brian, you
I could-
satisfied with?
Yeah, I could sum it up. All the technical comments on the engineering side were addressed. The only comment we had outstanding was really a general comment to the board and village about how we'll finalize and codify the no parking zone, which will be created in front of the project. But other than that, everything was addressed.
Satisfied?
Yes.
Right, so there were no comments for us on memo 2 that you issued. That's the one you're just talking about, right? With it essentially is asking the planning board.
Correct.
Okay.
Stuart, anything else?
I concur with the comments about the police department when we met. They actually thought it might alleviate a lot of congestion that occurs because of the buses stopping on Highland, because that causes all the traffic to cluster, and then they surge, and then they're surging down Main Street. And he thought it would keep a continuous flow throughout the village and actually maybe improve traffic overall during rush hour.
I mean, we're taking 10 buses off of the route, so that's,
Right.
13.
we should see
13.
And
13.
it'll be safer for children to be exiting at a site where they're off the street, and a much calmer street.
Any comments from the public?
Hi, my name is Leah Schwartz. I live at 26 State Street. I didn't even know this was being discussed tonight. I don't know if you neglected to inform the neighbors in the surrounding community. I haven't been informed about any of them. I'm actually here for another project tonight. But given that we're talking about parking, the parking situation on State Street is horrible. I only have on-street parking, so I don't have a driveway or anything. When I moved there in 2014, not once did I ever have an issue finding parking. Now I often have to go up to James or Williams to find a parking spot, and those sites are like alternate side. I've actually met with Debbie a number of times. She's come to the location to look at it. Part of the issue is that Academy and St. Paul's don't allow overnight parking. If you open those up to the overnight parking, it would alleviate like the whole problem. It would make a huge, huge difference. I actually emailed Howard a couple of months ago and asked if when the Children's Center was built, if it would be possible to lease spots or provide overnight parking on site there, particularly in snowstorms. So previously, Leach and Thomas, the owners there, used to let us park overnight when you did the emergency snow on State Street and you made us all move our cars. Because honestly, I would end up like 3/4 of a mile to a mile from my home. So I just really thank you for bringing up the parking situation for residents. It is really, really serious, and I don't think it's that big of a deal during the day, but overnight, when you guys are not there, those parking spots would be unbelievably useful for those of us who live there. So, yeah.
I'm not sure that we have the power to open up parking on the streets, but maybe that's something that Tracy, I don't know who we would refer whether that's possible too, but, who in the, like, who in the village would have the?
Parking on the Academy Place, for example, if you wanted, the village manager has the ability to change parking regulations locally within the village.
There's some conflict between the police department and yeah, I've been on this for like a year and a half.
Leah, all I'm saying is, I'm just saying what the process is, I'm well aware that there's a dispute. Because Academy Place, that's, you're right near the police station, so there's a whole issue. In terms of the ability to make a change, the manager can make changes to parking regulations in the village. It has to get published with the village clerk. It can then get, and then the Board of Trustees can in fact reject it, but if they don't, it basically becomes, you know, a new parking regulation. That's what would be needed to be done here to designate certain, you know, locations as no parking. That's how it would have to be done.
I mean, I think the one thing that possibly addresses your concern is that I don't think the Ossining Children's Center is gonna have overnight use of parking. So my concern is more with the influx during the day where or the spillover is gonna go, but I don't think there, just, and maybe, you know, you can respond, but I don't think that there's gonna be an impact on the available spaces for overnight parking on the street because of this project.
Correct.
Yeah, so my concern is not so much the impact that the Children's Center is gonna have versus what they could offer the community, which would be really tremendous, because the impact's already there. And during the day, it's really not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
No other comments from the public, so where are we?
You could entertain a motion to close. You need to make a determination of significance. And then we can start the process if necessary, not necessary, to draft the site plan resolution. But first you want to close the hearing, and then, as I said, determination of significance. This is an unlisted action, but the question is if the board has found anything as to whether, and I'll let Tracy opine on this as well, as to whether it would require anything that would require a positive declaration. Does not appear that anything has been presented that would indicate that it has to be a positive declaration. So it could be an unlisted negative declaration, and then it would be a resolution of site plan approval.
Okay. And do you want to do BR as well? I mean, are we done with BAR? Are you guys comfortable with?
I think
I think we kind of.
I think we've already.
Since we approving as a board, maybe we should just pull up the, since our new members will be
The
voting on it.
Yeah.
BAR, absolutely.
I think that might be nice to.
If you guys can kind of quickly walk us through the elevations for the.
Yeah, why don't we
BAR.
go to the last page?
The last page.
Yeah, we're asking everybody.
Oh, we're not gonna, well, we're just gonna close the public.
Close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's closed.
So I have to make a motion to do this.
Yeah.
Oh.
We haven't done
Nice of you, thank you.
Jumping the gun. Taking out the gun.
We'll make your money.
Okay. So the front of the building was meant to look more like a home for the young kids as they're coming in. It kind of resembles the original properties that they've been used to. And then so that houses mostly the administration. We're using hardy board throughout. There's hardy board and batten, a mix of board and batten and shingles in the front. The red boxes there, those are classrooms that are breaking up that middle volume, a little barn-like. Those are hardy panels, and the main volume in that middle section are hardy siding. We've got a mixture of asphalt shingle roofs, and we've got standing metal seam at the red boxes and the front porch. If we go down to some of the bottom pictures there.
Can I just ask a question? I know there's probably an issue of cost associated with roof choices.
Yep, there is.
I don't know, I mean, I wish I could see it all be standing seam.
So do I.
Okay.
So do I. I'm happy we got it in where we have it right now, and I can argue that, you know, it's because we have the lower slope roofs, so it's better to use the standing seam for those. So if we work our way towards the back, and to our right is the views of the Hudson. This is where we see on the lower level will be a thin stone veneer. Those are all classrooms overlooking the terraced play areas and the Hudson River. On the low roof there is another playground for the toddlers. They exit right from the main level, the red boxes, onto that play area. And the back volume there is also board and batten siding, and that is a multi-purpose room with classrooms below. And the multi-purpose room will be used whether it's for lunch or when it's raining outside. They'll use it for play activities, and it will be used for activities for holding events also afterwards, fundraising events, etc. The middle field there is for that's for preschool, and then the lower field is for school-age kids. And then there's going to be raised garden beds and some picnic tables there between the two fields. And this building is all situated on the one side to keep the view corridor open per zoning requirements.
And remind me again, is there fencing on that lower section in the back? Or you guys?
Yeah, you're not seeing it. There's a guardrail fencing for that lower field, probably be a little higher than guardrail fencing, in addition to a ball net that'll be 12 feet tall.
We have the cross-section of what that's going to look like, the material.
Of the
The
wall?
fencing?
Yes.
Fencing?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, what fencing? Right now it's scheduled to be, colors still to be decided. Right now it's black. It's a double wire by Omega fence, a double wire coated
Like an aluminum
steel.
type?
It's a steel fence, right? I may get, if we end up value engineer, that's a high ticket item. We'd love to get that in there, but it would go down to a chain link fence would be our other option there.
For obvious reasons, you want fencing over there.
Yes. Those are the fences immediately around the play areas, and then the perimeter of the site would get chain link fencing, which is already there. We'd be just fixing the existing fence.
You mean the lower perimeter?
No, the side.
The
right?
sides, the separating of the properties.
Properties.
Yes.
Oh, I see, okay.
But you're also having heavy vegetation there, so you don't.
Yes, we
really
are.
see them. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We definitely, we're putting evergreen screening there. That's on the landscape plan. And there's a wall on the south parking lot area that we will be building that will screen in front of as well. And again, I know there were some comments on the trees being used at the street, and we're open to whatever town would like us to put there. I think we're showing maples right now. There were previous comments that that's not
As long as it's
a
not a
tree.
Norway maple, because that's invasive.
Got it. I don't think it's a Norway maple.
Okay, good.
Any comments? Okay. So,
Wait, we have one.
On the site plan, I noticed that you have an emergency power generator next to a power, property line.
Mm-hmm.
You have a specification for the power generator?
Yes, and we've addressed the comments that we're far, I think we're 6 feet off the line, so we meet the decibel level requirement from the planning department. With the housing of the transformer, I think we meet I think it's an 80 decibel level requirement.
That's a specification.
And that meets it, yes. But with that, we confirmed that in our response to Kellard Sessions' memo, because that was a question they asked. It's next to the transformer too, so all the utilities are kept in that one corner, and the dumpsters, which will be screened with a fence.
in previous meetings, we kind of discussed where power was to be, trash, lighting, these are all things that kind of come up, and we kind of pretty much vetted the site plan over the last couple of months, so. Okay, so call for a motion, I guess, to make a determination of significance?
First to close the public hearing.
Okay, so we'll close the public hearing first, we have a motion to do that.
I'll move.
Jeff,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Great. So the next thing is the determination of significance.
Significance,
So, looks like Stuart said, yeah, secret determination.
I think that's good. Tracy, you're right. It would be a neg deck.
Yes.
So okay, call for a motion to the determination of significance.
I'll call for a neg deck on the,
And just for those who
declaration.
put negative, that's a negative declaration of, positive would be there would be a much longer environmental review. Negative means that basically there's a determination that there is no significant environmental impact as a result of this particular proposal.
And by the way, we do have, these things go to EAC, which is the Environmental Advisory Committee, and other committees that are germane to a certain application, like if this has environmental things, we'll ask for referrals.
And EAC reviewed this, and they were okay with the, with.
Yeah, we never
with the
received
proposal.
comments. Right,
They were okay with it.
But while you're ahead.
exactly, yeah, exactly.
So I'll second the.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, so.
I'll prepare a resolution for the next meeting with regard to site plan approval, and the board can vote on it at that time.
And if there's any other things that we
Yeah.
feel need to be added to the site plan over the next month, great.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if you would jump
I'll send it to you.
to Ossining Land LLC, which is Hudson Step, or we could go like the Maple Lodge, I guess, or Shabbat. Do you want to do Shabbat first?
Well,
or-
what I can actually just let you know what's going on that.
Okay.
The building inspector, Joe Augustinelli, and code enforcement officer, Jim St. George, have been in contact with the rabbi with regard to additional work that needs to be done. They are going there, in fact, on Thursday. There is a question with regard to the outstanding electrical that has to get done there. And to bring the board members up, this is a religious institution that is on Camp Woods Road. There was some issues raised by neighbors who are on Stone Avenue with regard to the back area not being paved and being inconsistent or not following the site plan.
Let's go back to that, they had all their approvals.
Yeah, everything has been
So
approved.
they had been through the board and.
2015, this
Right.
is,
Correct.
pretty much everybody here wasn't there for the original stuff, except for maybe Brian and Jamie, I think.
So what has occurred is, I believe a fence has now been put up. They've repaired the old fence. They will be doing repaving when the asphalt plants reopen. They'll be doing striping as well. With regard to internal work, part of it is a financial issue as to their ability to raise certain funds. But critical is getting the electrical inspection taken care of. And that's something that the building inspector and the code enforcement officer will be there on Thursday to see exactly how far that electrical has gone. And they're also following up with the plumbing inspector to see how far that's gone. I believe I indicated, I think they're supposed to have 3 complete bathrooms. I believe there is one and another one that is usable but not complete. So that's actually what's being checked into right now. Rabbi's been very helpful. It's just a matter of they having the necessary funds to complete the work they're doing. But the outside work has been done. They've also applied for a sign permit for their sign that is directly outside on campus, which they did not initially have. So it's moving towards compliance is what I just want to let the board know.
Do we want to just take this off the agenda then?
Yes.
And then you guys will advise us if,
Right,
I think that's fine.
okay, great.
absolutely.
Okay, maybe Hudson Step,
Fine.
Ossining Land LLC.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Annie Klein. I'm an associate with Del Bello, Donnell and Weingart, and Wise and Whitaker and White Plains. And I'm here tonight on behalf of Ossining Land LLC. They're seeking reinstatement of the site plan and conditional use permit approvals of the previously approved project known as Hudson Step. Ed Vogel is with me this evening from Warshauer, Malusi Warshauer. They have been the architects on the property throughout this whole process. So, you may know, Hudson Step was originally proposed in 2009 and was fully approved in October of 2015. It's located on the properties at 34 State Street, 21 James Street, and 27 Hunter Street. It's approximately 5.9 acres in the PWC zoning district, Central Waterfront Hillside Subdistrict. It's currently developed with a 58,000 square foot manufacturing building and the historic Smith Robinson House. The Hudson Step project will demolish the existing manufacturing building, and it's a mixed-use development, so there'll be 3 new buildings that will contain 189 units, residential units, including 19 affordable units, and the restoration of the Smith Robinson House to be used as office space. Nothing has changed since October of 2015. We're asking just for the exact same project. There was some remediation work done at the Smith Robinson house, and there was a demolition permit. They thought that that would prevent the approvals from expiring, but when they were working with the building department and the outside consultants on the construction drawings for the building permit, they were advised that the approvals had expired. So here we are. We've also applied to the Board of Trustees and the Zoning Board of Appeals for reinstatement of those approvals as well.
Okay, so this is a project that goes back many years. At one time, there were two sites, both getting an approval for a different development. Then I think back in the early 2000s, those two sites were merged, and sort of this final product is the result of that. At this point, I guess we could open it up to the board to get a sense of where we are. In the past, we've typically given an approval or an extension of an approval for one that's kind of either not expired. So this is kind of like, typically you'll have your year or two, whatever the site plan term is, the original approval, and then they'll come in before that and ask for an extension because, they've got to get work lined up and permitting and all that kind of stuff. So that hasn't happened here, and I guess, I kind of asked staff to look back at, what the past resolutions were. I think there were some issues with some water line improvements, and we also have, you addressed those violations that I think we probably want to get, some answers on.
Right, and I think we have Joe Chameli here as well, so he may be able to assist us with some of the past in terms of some of the agreements that went on vis-a-vis infrastructure. So, Joe, if you want to.
Sure.
How is everybody tonight? Welcome to new members. Yeah, as mentioned, over the years and in the last iteration of the plan, there were some off-site improvements that were agreed to, one being water main relining. At the time, when the application was last before you, there was the village was actively relining existing water mains throughout the village. So there was a portion of the contract that was being done in the vicinity of the project and that same water distribution system, so that the applicant agreed to make a contribution towards that contract. I believe the number was $192,500.
Correct.
Right? So that work is still would still be part of the approval. At the time, the timing of that payment was to coincide prior to the issuance of the first CO for any of the residential units. Some additional off-site work had to do with the connection from Upper James Street to Lower James, commonly known as Breakneck Hill. So there was quite a bit of restoration work to be done there, removal and replacement of the existing walkway, some fencing, a lot of debris removal, cleaning up some vegetation, some drainage work. That's still part of the application. It was part of the approved plan set, and I assume it would stay that way. There is some, as part of the project, streetscape improvements along the frontage on Hunter, State Street, as well as on Hunter down below, some sidewalk improvements. And the last bit of off-site improvements that were discussed but never really memorialized on a plan is at the intersection of Secor and Main. There's a small village-owned parcel that's used. I believe the public kind of traverses through it on their way down to the station. And the discussion at the time was to clean that up, maybe improve with some sidewalk and/or stairs, clear the vegetation and debris, and just kind of clean up that little corner. It's a small triangular-shaped lot. It's not on any of the plans, so I can't show you, but that was, like I said, it was in discussion with village staff and the applicant, but never put on paper yet.
Okay. So again, I don't know if there's a lot we could do tonight, other than, the applicant's back. They probably should kind of resurrect their files a little bit and get in touch with our, code enforcement, and also get some more insight into this, water relining and all the stuff Joe just laid out.
And Mr. Chair, if I might, a few things to help the board out. The entire prior FEIS, and it is all online. So if any members want to see that, including the finding statement, anything attached with those documents, they're all on the planning department's website under the secret page, so that's all there. But I want to thank Joe for his presentation, because it is important. There is $192,000 that basically, the village has done the work, I think is the point that should be made with regard to that. So that's important. With regard to the violations, I was advised today that there has been, and this was by the owner, Andy, your client, that there's been significant work done to clean it up, and we'll just go by and see. I mean,
I actually have.
you have photos?
Yeah, I have
You got
photos
some.
that I can submit.
Good.
That it was cleaned up this weekend, and it looks
So when you
great.
say it was cleaned up, you're talking just the linear walkways around the outside of the site? Or you're talking about
The entire site. They came in with a bulldozer and a truck, cleared out all the trash. It looks great. So I can submit these to Jamie.
Has anyone done a walk in the Smith Robinson house recently, just to make sure that there's no water penetration through the roof or anywhere, so that, that it will stay at the status quo that it was when it started getting boarded up?
Yeah, it's my understanding that everything is status quo in there, and that, it's part of restoring it. They wouldn't want it to get too
Right,
damaged.
right. No,
But
right.
might have more to say on that. But yeah, no. Everything is not changing anything. We're agreeing to any past condition, and of course, the infrastructure improvements as part of the Board of Trustees special permit.
And Mr. Chair, just two other items, if I might. The Board of Trustees did approve a resolution at their last meeting to refer the application for the waterfront special permit to this board for its consideration and recommendation back to the Board of Trustees. Secondly, this evening, and I've given it all to you, we received a letter from counsel for the school district that has asked for an opportunity to just make some comments, not tonight, but they will be submitting to the board most likely before the next planning board meeting. So they asked for that opportunity.
And note that this did require HPC approval, but that approval did not expire for the Robinson House.
Were the neighbors re-noticed for this?
I think we did.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, we have all the cards and everything, so it all went out again. Because it's being treated it's treated essentially as a new application. It's not
Right.
because the time had lapsed, so.
In the
that's why
past,
we
like you
started.
said, we would give
Right.
an extension, usually typically like a one-time extension from the original approval, but for whatever reason, Hudson stepped in that, so here we are now.
They did have some extensions. They were extended through 2016, and then they had the demolition permit and did some work on the Smith Robinson house, and there was just getting the construction drawings all set for the building permit took longer than they were expecting, and they didn't realize that the approvals were expiring, so that's kind of where we are. It wasn't an intentional.
Okay.
Could I ask what the waterfront special permit is for, or what it
Sure.
allows?
So it's additional density, residential density. So as part of providing these infrastructure, off-site infrastructure improvements, 30,000 square feet of open space on the project, and green building, we're achieving LEED Gold. We can get 10 units, additional 10 units per acre.
So these were density bonuses, like restoring the Smith Robinson house,
Yep.
this offshore infrastructure,
The lead.
green building. These are
Exactly.
things that are part of our existing code now where we'll allow a density bonus based on, what things that the, applicant developer brings to the table. So I guess we'll adjourn this till next month. You guys have some more. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Again, the public?
And again, this is why I'm here. I did receive notice for this one, so thank you.
Can you state your name again for the
Yes,
record?
I am Leah Schwartz. I live at 26 State Street Rear, which is a cottage that's behind number 26 State Street that most of you have probably never seen. So last time I was here was on April 24th when we discussed the implications of the 80 Main Street development. At that time, my neighbors and I raised a series of safety concerns about that project, such as the instability of the retaining wall and close proximity to the ledge, as well as some nuisance concerns, such as garbage continuously being left on my property and an overgrowth of brush and weeds. 4 months later, I watched the retaining wall collapse from my living room. I was evacuated from my home, and every single day since, I worry that when that building crumbles, it will take my house with it. I know we're not here today to discuss the negligence that led to that disaster, and I'm not here to say, we told you so, but I hope that we've learned as a community, and I hope that you've learned as a board. I hope that unlike before, the developers talking about Hudson Step know they're coming into a community. State, Broad, Spring, and James are a community that has street life and neighbors who know and care for each other. I know it doesn't look like it to outsiders, probably especially not the white folks you're hoping to lure into your expensive lofts and offices, but take it from a white girl who moved there, at 27 years old, single, probably the only white person who lives on that street, that my neighbors on their porches and stoops, the ones hanging out on the block, make me feel safe. They notice if I haven't walked my dog for a few days or gone for a run in a while, and it's imperative that whatever you do here does not oppress the diversity and culture of this neighborhood by pushing people indoors with increased police presence or outsider judgments, in actuality, which would make us all less safe. I hope that unlike before, you're considering the precarious hillside on which this proposed development will sit. I hope you're planning to provide oversight that will reduce the amount of debris and rubbish that blows around our homes both during and after construction is complete. I already spoke about the parking need. I hope that whatever happens on this site will allow parking for the community. Many of us would pay for a parking spot. I'm happy to lease a spot from anybody who has one available. So please take that into consideration, because these two sites now, the Austin Children's Center and this one, are right next to each other. And they're right next to my home. I already have a crumbling disaster on one side of my home, threatening to topple my 98-year-old house, with grounds that are not being maintained and overgrowth that's pushing my fence down. I hope that as you proceed with the development that will sit on the other side, you prioritize the people in the community over the profits. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I know your house very well.
Good, thank you.
When we still had the Elks Club there, this is where I always walk my dog every day, all the way down to your beautiful little quirky cottage. And it's a very funky little place, and it's wonderful.
Thank you.
And I think we should probably have the representatives for Hudson Step respond to some of the issues about integration and gentrification, because I think you put some pretty heavy statements out there, and I understand it, but I think we should hear what they have to say. I was part of this process as part of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I would say that all the projects that's come before us, Hudson Step has been the most open and hearing and listening and accommodating. So I'm not saying rest assured, but I'm just saying I think it's some of your fears may be alleviated. But I would invite someone from Hudson Step to maybe comment on that.
That'd be great, and I would be very open to any future conversations on the topic. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay. So that being said, we'll adjourn until next month. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So that puts us next up to the Maple Lodge, is that
Correct.
Maple Lodge, 1217. So this is another project on North Island Avenue with Brandon Furniture. Everyone kind of doesn't know the location. This is, I think, on its third generation. So I kind of mentioned to JB if he could give us a quick 5-minute synopsis of the history of the project.
There should be another folder now.
Oh, another folder?
No, drawing that shows.
That's all I have. That's all that Bob sent me today. That's what he sent me.
Because I do have a map that shows. Still talking about this project, hopefully we have,
Which one? Most recent?
chronological, the second one, chronological.
Oh, chronological. This one?
Unfortunately, after, this just happened last couple of days, so what I was trying to do with this drawing here is kind of give you a history of this project. Here you have in this drawing, what you see on the top, this is the old Myers Furniture or Brandon Furniture building. The project itself is connected to Snowden Avenue, but it's about 4.5 acres. There used to be an old gas station in the front, and there are 2 old houses. It's still remaining.
Yes, and
We still have 2 old houses, so the total were 4 lots that kind of have merged together. So what I wanted to show was in the top, which is this, was original approved. This back in 2012. There was an existing one-story building furniture store that we have applied to convert into retail spaces, offices, restaurant, and warehouse. In addition, we have replaced the gas station that used to be right on the front, and we put it to one side of the building. And we were eliminating the 2 houses. There is one end of the property towards Snowden Avenue that we're not proposing any work because there's wetland and there's a lot of wooded area. So that area, we're gonna leave it. We always planning to leave untouched. At the time, we got these approvals, and we're going through the process of creating all the documents after the approvals. And due to what there was retail and restaurant, trying to find tenants and trying to move the project along, we came with the second approval. When we came back, which was adding 2 years later, 2.5 years later, we came back in 2015, and we kind of modified a little bit the gas station and the snack shop, but now we converted the main building. We added 2 floors to the top of what you see now as the 1-level furniture place, and we converted this into being a gym on the first floor. It's going to be a 15,000 square foot gym, and we were adding self-storage. So the rest of the building was going to be self-storage. So there's an existing 2-story level converted to self-storage, and then we were adding another 44,000 square foot of self-storage. In the process of doing this job as well, it came to light an issue with the adjacent neighbor, or an easement issue, an access issue along this side of the property. And what we end up happening is through the process, that property is still the same ownership, but in order to move the project forward, a 20-foot easement was given for egress and egress to the neighbor. In order not to get things complicated, what we did is we moved our project a little bit, so we didn't utilize the easement. The easement, even though it's part of our property, it's just for, that was the original design. As you can tell, we have parking in the easement area. So we're trying to show the 3 areas that keep changing. So then, we've been working on this project for a while. There's some engineering issues that we've been working, and it didn't fully develop, and time elapsed, and we came back and we had to redo the approval. Now, so we came now with a current site plan, and at this time, the change that we have made is that we are going everything self-storage. There's no gym. So now the whole building, in the addition, total of about 88,000 square feet, is self-storage. And we have the gas station in the front and with the snack shop. What happens when we went to self-storage, the requirements for parking spaces, it became much less. So that allowed us to reshape a little bit the gas station, area. We added some more greens. We also, speaking with DOT, we aligned the entrance with the light. There's a traffic light there. And we also, working with the county, we relocated the bus stop. So that brings us to that. And then I guess that shows as well that sheet showed the area that kept changing through the time, the 3 version, because the building itself has not changed, but the area where the gas station and the easement, as you can tell, the evolution from the top left corner to the bottom, how we have, the design has evolved. Now, Trace, if you can, now we can go back to, I don't know if there's any questions. Those were copies of the original, and this time I did try to bring, since I have access, I'm sorry for the copy, didn't come too good. So those are some of the original approval drawings that didn't come out yet.
So, Jimmy, these
that-
elevations represent what you're trying to propose now?
Yes, those elevations, the reason we have those elevations rendered today is that the color that we have proposed back in 2012, which was mainly stucco, they're no longer available.
Was that the cappuccino? I think that's the only thing I remember.
Yes, yes. I was very interested in my coffee colors. Back then it was opio and cappuccino, and so we did submit same color, same palette colors, but different names. Unfortunately, they're not coffee related. And the new drawings.
Want to go up?
No, I should.
You wanna
Yeah,
operate
yeah.
it?
So I think a lot of time was spent on the connectivity with the gas station with the rest of the parcel.
Right.
You know, a lot of time was spent by previous boards trying to kind of get a handle on if we felt it was sort of a good layout. So I think we're kind of back to that because we're basically starting with, you know, a bunch of new folks here. So we get to do it all over again.
Right, so some of the, it's just to go over some of the engineering things that we have, there's still some pending engineering items, some testing to be done and stuff like that, but we are, like the DOT, they're kind of waiting for us to go back to them with the final design. There was an issue with, we are showing, and I think the prior chairman wanted to make sure we are continuing the same treatment in the sidewalk. There was an issue about we are moving.
You're talking about out here, Jimmy, right? That strip
Yes.
along the side, that we're trying to create a green sort
It's
of
not,
barrier.
there is a continuation, there is like these pavers that the village has been using, and that's what we continue to do.
Right, yeah, that snow shelf.
That's
used
no
to have
shelf.
a paver inlay, which
Yeah.
has been added. But just on the bigger picture of the DOT, if you do have anything from them that we can see, the concern being is if they go in front of DOT for the approval of the curb cuts, DOT might not like it, you know, and they'd have to change their site plan, which would affect what you guys are looking at now.
Well, we're
And typically, we would decide on that before it goes to DOT, right? I mean, it's typically.
Well, this is what's been happening with DOT, because we've been going, I think, 2014, 13, we've been having meetings with them. So at this point, they're kind of saying to us, come back with a, like, their comment has been, some of the comment that they had, which we accommodated was move back the side, you know, the provide for the snow removal, and also, there is an issue about the left turn, but that's, we're still working with DOT on that. And there is the issue that they want us to align the new entrance with the traffic light. And I think we did provide, I'm not sure if you have a copy, but we did provide a correspondence as part of, with the county relocating the bus stop. There was no issue with that. And they provided, Mark Ziegler provided a copy of a memo saying that he'd been at the site and he had no issue relocating that. And mostly, we had the other issue, I think, that you had mentioned, Brian, is that we actually don't have curbing over the property line because that's still our property. The easement talks about 20-foot easement, so one of the comments that had come from Zona Sessions that we show Corbin over the property line. In actuality, this lot is also part of Mr. Salih's property, and we are providing a 20-foot easement to the neighbor, which is not building on it, we leave it as it is, because it's gonna be used by the neighbor. As an easement.
The neighbor being the motorcycle shop
Yes.
to your immediate north.
Yeah. I'm trying to think
Well, I'm Sal Salih, I'm the owner. Regarding to the curb cut and DOT, we actually reducing the curb cuts. There's 5 curb cuts there now,
Right.
and we reduced it to 4. So actually, we're doing less than what's there as
Sure.
far as.
And if you have any correspondence or no objection from them, I mean, just because when you have a site, we look at the circulation, and I know you do have the 2 curb cuts kind of one after the other.
Right,
You know.
there used to be 5 curb cuts, we now down to
Right.
3.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
talking even
Well,
as proposed,
what
how it
I'm
would
saying
how it
is
would
kinda,
function.
what we're finding ourselves right now is kinda, they're saying to us, well, come back with a clear, I don't know if the board wants to say, we're comfortable with this, and then we go back to them. They kinda are looking for us, since this is the 3rd plan we show them, that they wanna know, is this the
Right,
final
what's
plan?
your,
I mean, if we go back to them with the approved plan and they don't like it, and they want us to change something, we have to come back to adjust it. But most likely, they're okay with it because you go from 5 curb cuts to 3 curb cuts. It's no brainers. I mean, they like it. If you're not doing more curb cut in the middle, you're reducing the curb cut. So as far as the DOT.
Right now, what we're facing on approval is kinda, both entities are asking us for the same thing. So that's what we're faced with right now.
okay, so I mean, if you could just, if
Yeah.
we saw, because we've been in the dark, I didn't even know you went in front of DOT,
Oh,
so.
we've been,
Yeah, we
So,
have,
give
we
me
have letters,
an email,
we submit
a
letters,
letter,
we submit
something.
everything already.
Okay.
Actually, was approved, this is this last year, was basically with Joe Clark, and it's basically approved, they're just waiting for the engineer things to be done, and to be approved by the engineer.
I think essentially the site, we've left
Just the
we've left
engineer.
on the agenda because of this sort of,
The
parallel track
Yeah.
with the DOT.
With the DOT and the engineer, the
Right.
clerk session, they have to review our drainage system, all that stuff, and that's what took long time really. It has to do with the engineer more than DOT. DOT with us is we done with them, basically.
So as far as engineering, what else, Brian, is there anything else to kind of?
Well, they've been chipping away at the engineering comments over these iterations. There's nothing major engineering-wise. Something that the board might want to look at is the drive-through, if you could show them the site plan. I know we commented on where, if it's say it's a Dunkin' Donuts, if you have a queue of 4 cars, it seems like it might cause an issue,
well,
based on where the speaker is. I mean, anyone who's gone through that's where the holdup is for circulation, and that is,
well, this
so
is
if cars
for-
stack up, you're kind of cut off that bypass, so we asked.
And this is sort of the island where they actually go.
This is where actually where the window is. Yeah,
But now we
this is the
see,
window. So you have the-
speaker, so,
I think it's.
right there, so
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, and you're locked up. So, if there's an opportunity to enhance that, I mean, it's you're gonna have to run it and own it, but it's something, this seems a little constricted.
It's funny.
Well, I think some empirical data too about how many people do the drive-through versus, how many people pull up to a parking space, get in a car, go in and you buy a cup of coffee and whatever else they're doing there.
You know what's interesting to me is because you show these cars in a line after I guess the pickup window is under the,
Yeah, just leave it, yeah.
But then you show cars continuing around, but there's not really ever gonna be cars sitting there, because once people get their coffee and their donut, they're kind
Well,
of
they have
on
to
their
make
way.
sure their order is right.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know, I'm just,
Yeah, no.
is it possible to put to put the pickup, to kind of move everything down to make use of that space where you're showing these cars wrapping
Except for the
around.
window there?
Is it possible to put the, pickup window on that end, so then you get
Elevation, you
4 or
can't.
5 more?
Elevation, you can't.
You can't do it because.
No, because elevation, you can't do it. This is the best we could come with it. And this is actually, as we went through it with the previous board, and it was done. I mean, the issue wasn't really with the drive. The drive was with
Yeah,
the, with the drainage.
elevation meaning that, because that's
We are going-
higher than the
I mean, if you look
area
at-
below.
Yes, because it's slower, in the back is slower, the road is slower, then it goes down slow because about 5,
So
6
you're not
feet.
really flat, you're actually heading down
And
Yeah.
then it start going down.
because of the grade.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at DD in Arcadia, they have the shortest access, and they cross traffic that goes down to the Stop and Shop. And they have the shortest access, of any drive-through that I've ever seen, and very tight quarters. There's room for maybe 2.5, 3 cars. And they're very busy, and it keeps flowing through. I think, I can't see that there's gonna be 10 cars at one time.
And this is coffee, it's gonna be Dunkin'
Yeah.
Donuts coffee, it's just coffee basically, and
Yeah.
it's not gonna be sitting like
I
ordering
don't
burger
think,
and cheese and stuff like
that's
that.
gonna be the biggest issue.
And you haven't finalized
Yeah, but
it.
the thing is, if it does, 10 people decide to get coffee all at the same time, you're too many cars out into North Highland, and I'm pretty sure it's a 2-lane, it's not 4-lane there. So it's,
Yeah.
that's a choke point, I live near there, that's a choke point in the morning, traffic going in towards downtown, that's heavy traffic.
You see, like Mr. Hernandez said, this was approved first time, the second time, and the change was not really done with the drive-through, the change was done with the big major, the main building. And this is, we went through it, we did all the study, we did all the traffic study, and we did all of the engineer, we did all these things. We came back again, we went from gym to self-storage into whole building self-storage. So as far as the gas station, really, when we were last time, if you remember, they asked us, we have there's too many parking spaces.
I recall, I think in the spring of last year, we kind of looked at this a little more in detail, and it kind of went quiet for several months due to the engineering and
Right,
some of
we
that stuff
should,
getting done.
yeah.
So,
And the issue was, the
We
main
looked
issue,
at-
the main issue was, I'm sorry, the main issue was basically, is for the drainage, nothing else as far as the engineering. And I'll tell you what, simple what it is. Our engineer said, with the killer section is, they did not witness the brake test. And that took a long 4 or 5 months to convince them, and then I get fed up with it, and I said, okay, I'll dig the holes again, just come back witnesses. So it's really back and forth, like, they don't, this guy doesn't care, and my engineer doesn't care.
and I'll be honest, I can't quite
Yeah.
recall all the details from early last spring, and maybe just resurrecting the minutes, the notes,
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that'll help clarify
So
some of that.
this is what was really, it's like they didn't witness the brake test, and I was saying, my engineer said, no, we did it, they worked together with it, and I said, listen, I'll do it again. And it went in August, I did the falls report again, they did the test, we submit the plan. If you remember, in November, we were here with the report was delivered from my engineer to them, and the board here has the report, and they didn't have it. They said, we don't have it. So even everybody in the board had the report from our engineer, and they don't have it. Then they have to postpone it to October. November. And we went from October to November. We came back in November, and they said, we have some questions we have to answer. So here I go, 4 days before the meeting, we get the answer from the questions
So
from them.
the
which
good
we
news
answered.
is we have a nice complete report now, and Brian's kind of walking us through that. And I guess, for the rest of the board, we'll get everybody to chime in on, some of the
This
finishes.
is as ARB, so
Yeah, but as far as everything else, Mr. Chameli, it's been approved once or twice, and the third time was Mr. Clark said, we deal with the engineer, and the engineer, that's the issue was, for 6-7 months, just about the brake test.
Okay.
They had to do the test, and they had to witness the test, which is
Fair
the
enough.
second.
The board will take it up, and we'll discuss, where we are with this. And
So,
we appreciate your update. Like I said, the only thing I could add is if you want to really kind of zero in on what was said last spring, maybe pull those minutes.
that's what Joe Clark said, we are okay with it, just, we asked for that time to approve it subject to the engineer approval, and then they said, no, go get the engineer, then after that, you know, either approve it or we'll do it the same, the year before or the last time before. Approve subject to the engineer, but I think now we are okay with the engineer report. So there's nothing else they can add to.
Thank you.
I have another question. You have this area of, I don't think we've seen really, so this is going to the self-storage side of the project. Because you're required to have 47. Usually the issue is, you know, you don't have enough parking, but here you have, you're required to have 47.
Too much parking.
We actually reduced it
You've
because.
got 70, and then you've got 20, you have this area of 20 future parking. I'm just curious, is there,
Okay.
is this building is it?
No, I'm trying to anticipate
Yeah,
a board's question, which is usually when we present self-storage, it's like, we say, okay, we only need 40 parking spaces. And usually a board turns around and tells us, well, what happens if tomorrow something happened and you don't have all self-storage? And you need more parking, you create an.
Yeah, that's my question. So is this building being designed in a way that the use could change?
No, but we have enough parking that
Yeah.
we're not anticipating, you know,
It seems to me like there's just a lot of parking on this.
Well, we used to have, we reduced the amount of parking.
Because we had a gym, first actually the plan
No,
was
that's
a
what I
gym.
mean, but I just, for self-storage, there's a lot of, I mean.
We used to have 100, so.
Usually the problem is there's not
So we
enough.
reduced,
Right,
we reduced the
and to the
parking.
point,
We reduced the parking by about 52 parking spaces.
the wire mill
from the
storage
original.
really has no parking. So you can compare this to what's down on Water Street, and, you know, you draw your own conclusions, but
Yeah.
Wait, I'm just curious, where?
Maybe tomorrow we start renting to the, like the lady said here, for them to park. Maybe
She
we
lives in
start
Park.
renting parking spot,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay, where's where the sign self-storage, on this elevation, where's the entrance, the main entrance plan?
In the main end, okay.
Centered?
This,
Because there's these like glass,
here,
but I
here's
don't-
the,
those aren't entrances, those are
just
just.
this,
In the middle of
Okay.
that big,
Okay.
so one of the things we discussed with the board coming back was that we don't want it to make everything, we left some of the glasses gonna be opaque, or, because we don't want everything to look like a box. And that's when we introduced we have these areas.
Is,
glass.
JB, which one is the south and which one is the north elevation?
This is the
the
south.
That's the south.
With this is the, if you can, we always refer on this project, there's a 3,500 square foot warehouse, this is the lower area, it's always been there. So, from the prior furniture, so this is kind of the existing level, and this is, we're proposing the 2 additional levels on top.
Is this going to be visible from the street, this facade?
Yes. It is at a lower level, I mean, I think there's like a 12, 14 feet difference between. And then, yeah, we have landscaping in the front, we have the parking for the gas station as well.
Confirm that all the storage will be inside,
Yes.
yes.
just for the record. You got a lot of parking there.
If the engineer report was completed between our engineer and the village, we could have had the vote on this one in November or October or November, or this, you know,
Yeah,
that's,
I think-
but because of that issue, we could not have it done.
And this is also, this wasn't, when I was doing the comparison, this is why I brought in the, this was the original colors, this is the colors we're proposing now. This is you, just to make sure I have the right names, Mike. Coffee, I think this was the cappuccino or the coffee color. One of the espresso, it was the espresso.
That's why we put in Dunkin' Donuts there.
JB, the finish is a drive, it is an ephes.
It's the
Ephes,
ephes, yeah.
Ephes, yeah.
And there is,
Stump Road.
yeah.
Guys, any questions? Trustee Stewart, anything else?
They will need to go to EAC because it's within it's south of Route 9, or excuse me, west of Route 9.
We can get that on.
But that's.
Okay, they've done the long form EAF and all those things. so.
Everything done, we just went.
They might need to, if you've had any changes like percentages of coverage, since your plan has evolved, that should be amended to reflect the latest. and
Okay.
greatest.
That was one of our comments, is to keep the
Yeah.
EAF updated
Right,
as you go.
it's worked, it's been tweaked a little bit, so.
Are there gonna be, I know some self-storage facilities have like truck rentals and things like that. Are you gonna have trucks on site for that kind of thing, or what's?
Well, the company who's taking that to put storage inside, they didn't say anything about rental truck or something. I don't think so, it's a national company, most likely, so they don't, we didn't disclose that one, we didn't discuss that.
Right, it's not gonna turn into a U-Haul place where we.
No, we're not
trucks
gonna,
and
no, we're
trailers
not
and that
gonna,
kind
no,
of
no,
thing.
it's not gonna use our rental, no, we're not gonna do that. No, definitely not.
And Brian, you had some other things in your January 9th memo that you were referencing. You talked about the subdivision plats you were talking about in there.
Right, that's been brought up.
Before.
That was, right,
I know you're,
it's the subdivision plat, if I understand, it was all part, because we're not subdividing, we're creating an easement. We're not
right,
subdividing.
you're not modifying any lot lines to merge lots,
Well, it's
Well,
all,
that is, it's all 4 lots becoming 1 lot.
so that's under the village code, any modification is considered a subdivision.
And
I know it's not,
it had to be done as a separate application?
no, just modify your application and go through the
Oh, I
process
thought that was,
of
okay,
merging
I thought
those
that
lots.
was, yeah, just.
You know, it's not,
well, I own all the 4 lots now, and.
Right now.
No, I think it's a
It's
formality.
protecting for the
so,
future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a
in the
formality.
future, I could, I could do whatever the village asks me to do. The building assessor wants me to join them all together, some people wants me to divide the 2 lots, so still in the.
but the project involves all the lots for parking, for access, for easements, so now is what we're looking for, is to get that cleaned up on paper, and then it's called a subdivision in the code as the language.
But it's not a separate, it's not a separate application, it's part of the same application, which is changing, modifying the
Correct.
application to
Correct.
include that, right?
And I think we've always looked at this as just a site plan, not, I don't think we know what, you never mentioned we're subdividing.
No,
No,
it's
it's
not.
just a.
You
it's
say
not a
subdivision.
We're
you think,
changing the
you know,
lot lines,
yes.
so that's where the
It's
issue.
a lot line adjustment.
A line
I just
adjustment.
don't wanna make sure that's not lost in the shuffle, and then they get to the end, and we have 4 individual lots that have shared parking and buildings, so it was more of a cleanup comment.
I'll open up to the public, if there's anyone here to speak to us in the public.
Actually, I got a question, if you don't mind. I heard.
Please come up to the mic
Oh,
and
sure,
state your
of
name.
course.
Thank you.
Stephen Clune, I live at 6 Piping Rock, thank you for the protocol. When you talked about gas stations, let's count the gas stations on Highland right through there. There's one in the corner, is that the property you own on Snowden?
No.
You don't own that
That's
one?
the.
Okay, so then there's an empty lot, which is right in front of Brandon Furniture,
be a gas
which
station.
used to be a gas station,
That's
it's
the
now
one
just
we're talking
paved over.
about.
And that's part of
Okay.
this proposal.
And so that's part of this proposal? Okay, so going north, after the motorcycle place, they just renovated 2 gas stations. One is kind of like a junkyard at the moment with Citgo pumps not installed. And then the BP looks like it's close to being done, but it's been kind of there sitting vacant for since it was finished. And then you've got Didi's. And then you've got across from the Italia, you've got the Shell station. Do we need another gas station? question? I mean, not to
There's
be
been a
offensive.
long debate about that, but if people feel there's money in pumping gas, we're not telling people what they should and should not invest in.
That's sort of a crappy view as far as.
That's,
when
we
you-
let the market, it's a real market-driven
Right.
thing, that we have the zoning district,
Yeah.
and the zoning district allows gas stations, and they don't say, we don't prescribe like how many feet they have to be apart, we let the market drive that.
Really, that's a
commercial uses.
village thing?
That's actually, you'd find that a statewide in land use, that land use, we do not designate, where, how many number of gas stations, it's really the.
Yeah, I used to live in Webster, New York, which is in New York, and there was many developments of four-corner gas stations, and then the village of Webster outlawed that, so they could have only two at one intersection.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that around here in Austin?
Actually, I don't think we have any of that in our zoning, and most
Yeah.
of Westchester County doesn't do that. So
curiosity.
we prescribe down to that level, a lot like the market drive. I mean, when I was in upstate New York, they had a problem with pharmacies on every corner. And the same thing would happen, and one would come in and knock the other one out.
Oh, sure.
But it is a market-driven thing. I mean, I guess
Jeff, yeah,
we're looking at the comprehensive plan, it's something we can look at, and
Yeah, I
that's
was
what
just
we should
gonna add
address.
that. I was just gonna add that.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the plan as I see it now, I mean.
Yeah, but there's gonna be a revision to the comprehensive plan, and that would be the process that would lead to changing our zoning law that might, make the kind of requirements like you're talking about. So that's the process more long-term where something, but as of right now, this is the zone where gas stations are permitted, and that's where they're.
Well, just as a resident, it's nice to hear that what's going on.
This is gonna be a nice gas station.
Thank you, sir.
And there's been an effort by the board to try to really encourage the parcels on the, on the main thoroughfare, which is, north and south Honda, clean up, and thank you, that you recognize some of those gas stations are finally getting cleaned up, and, it's good to see, and hopefully that, there's a snowball effect there. Okay. Anyone else in the public? Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board, I guess?
So where are we at right now?
Yeah, what are we at? What are we-
It's gonna go to the EAC, we'll put it on the EAC's agenda for February.
So are we just adjourning it at this point, or are we making a decision on anything?
Review the ESC's review.
You need the EAC
Okay.
review. You still have to determine significance, although as Brian points out in his memo, there was a neg deck for the prior iteration of this project.
Right.
It doesn't appear that there's any reason that the negative declaration would be any different now than it was before.
And same circumstance, there was previous approvals that,
The board
placed and
will
they've
be,
expired, but
as part of
this
the
is, I think,
resolution,
final,
just redo that.
the final version of what we're gonna hopefully approve in the near future. Okay. We will see you next month then.
So go to EAC and then come back.
Right.
And then at that point,
Okay, 19 Campwoods?
Hello again.
I'm gonna close the evening. One more after this and it'll be gone.
There are other architects in Austin. This is- most likely.
All right. 19 Campus, I hope, we have provided a manual as well, and some drawings. We had some feedback from the board, and we tried to address most of those issues. I think you had it on the, some of the items, yeah. This
Can you
project
just
for the
explain-
new.
yeah, just real quick.
For the, this is in the intersection of Stone Avenue and Campwood. This is what's otherwise known as Lipton Supermarket. This store has been in place for over 40 years. It's been part of the neighborhood. Due to new big stores coming in, and even a snack shop developed in nearby gas stations. It has become very difficult to maintain the supermarket. That's what led our client that they wanted to close the supermarket, so we explored the idea of adding apartments, which is the right of use on this zone. We were adding 2 floors with 8 apartments originally. Since then, we have reduced the project to 6 apartments, 6 2-bedrooms apartments. When, if I can do this. The last time, I hope that, I don't know if the board had a chance to read the memo we provided. There was big discussions about the parking in this corner, the parking along Stone Avenue, and in Campbell. A lot of the parking that happens on the street, it happens during the day, and it's a busy intersection in that corner. What we're looking to do is provide residential units in this area and modify or make this parking area in the back better. To walk you to the comments that we have from the board the last time, some of the comments was we didn't show at the time a connection from campus to the main entrance to the apartment, which was in the back. What we have done is we have provided a sidewalk along the property. It is a slope sidewalk, it's like 6%, 7%, but it does provide access from campus to the main entrance if somebody is not parking, is not driving into the site. We did explore the idea of having an entrance from campus, but the way, as you can tell, the angle of the building and the existing store, that is an upholstery store, and there's a supermarket, it becomes very cumbersome to try to get this done. So we opted to have the sidewalk connecting to the rear. Here, some of the issues that we discussed as well was, for example, issues with access to the garbage, to the dumpster. So we did show an area where you can maneuver a 40-foot truck to pick up the dumpster. Also, we show that most of the deliveries happens in off hours, and we show an area adjacent to the building where that can be done. The other thing that we did is also in the blue area, it's, I guess what you would call, there's no piling area or area where you'll be able to allocate the snow for the, so there won't be an issue during the snow removal. Again, also what we did, this is a 6 apartments, 6 2-bedrooms apartments. Again, they're accessible from the rear of the building. And another concern that the board had from the Airbnb point of view was that when you look at this building from the back, that because of the angle of the slope, that it looked like a 4-story building in the back. So what we've done is we kind of reduced or we eliminated part of the turf floor. So it's a slope. Architectural-wise, this is what exists right now, and what we tried to do is bring some of the architectural residential elements from the neighborhood. And again, we selected a highly plain color, kind of the bluish tone, and this is the elevation from the rear.
JB, there's an elevator in the building, or?
Yes. Oh.
And you don't have a floor plan for first floor?
No, we don't have.
Because that's gonna be an unfinished space, basically, finished, but it's not gonna be, it's gonna be one retail store or one?
No, we're not changing the current use. There's gonna be an upholstery store on one side, like it says.
Okay, so those 2 units stay?
Yes, those will stay.
But is the entire site being demolished, or you're just building?
No, it's not demolished.
Oh.
We're gonna, so this is gonna be modular units, we're gonna build on top of it.
So essentially what's existing there is going to stay, and
Yeah.
they'll add these modular units on top of it. And the whole exterior of the building will be reclad in the finishes that JB just
Well, another part of the discussion was, and that's why we did the site, we showed the site for the school next door, which I guess Stuart had provided a report earlier. This was, the school kind of surrounds our property, but we just wanted to show that our site does not have access to Stone Avenue, which is, you know, one of the biggest issues in the area, the parking in that road.
Right, this is the Chabad, right, the
Yeah,
But
two
they
buildings,
access,
this is here, and this is the,
they have access to Stone Avenue,
yeah,
yes.
they access
Right.
their parking through Stone, but they don't access it through Camp Woods, right?
No,
So your parking, but
it's
their
accessible
parking,
through
but there-
campus right now,
There'll
yes.
be some separation.
Yes, and what we have, there's an easement between the two neighbors, so this parking is for the existing building in the corner.
Which, yeah.
so JB, it's basically shared. Your applicant doesn't own the parking up to the other guy's property?
No, it is, there is a
The line is
10-foot
somewhere in
easement.
the middle there, that's a
Yes.
good representation of where the property line is?
Yes,
And you guys both gave each other easements to travel across?
it is an existing easement from, I'm not sure how long the easement is,
Do we have a copy of that? Is that something you would
but,
see?
we do have a copy, we can provide it with a copy of the easement, that's
Thank you.
what-
Are you eliminating the parking that currently is against the Lipton structure?
Yes, what we are done is, I guess, what happened to my, yes, I can, go ahead. See if I can show you better. Oh,
That may not have worked.
maybe they had enough of me tonight.
So there's at least a variance for parking, right?
No, there's no, well, let me talk about it. This board has the option to, since there is, let me close this.
Right.
As part of the code, I think really it was 270-27, talks about shared parking, and the planning board can waive either 50% or 100% of the parking when we can, like in this case, we can demonstrate that, that the use is, doesn't correlate, that where most people use the building during the day, at night, and this is what we had done. Based on that, we need 12 parking spaces, thank you, Chris, 12 parking spaces for the residents, but we have highlighted here is we're making 6 of those parking spaces reserved. So there will be a sign that for those parking spaces that says reserved for residential, and then the other 10 parking spaces will be shared between Lipton and the residents. Because at night, Lipton, by the time they close, they have very little business at night, so that's when the residents use the parking. And one of the concerns was that, you know, if somebody is home during the day, if they want to use their parking, that's why we designated 6 parking spaces to be reserved.
So the shared parking, isn't that, the theory behind that is one use would use it during the day and then one would
Right.
use it during night, but you're reserving parking for residents, that'll be available to only those residents 24 hours a day, right?
Yes, yes.
So that's
That-
not gonna be there's no sharing with at least those 6 spots.
Well, that was done in order to accommodate the question that came up, that, you know, what will happen if you have, if you want to have a parking space during the day and you're one of the residents. So we felt that if we reserve 1 parking space per apartment, that's separate.
So then if they have
Okay.
one apartment where the occupants of that apartment have 2 cars, they're gonna have 1 reserved parking space. What
Yes.
happens to the second car? If they're parking in that space right there, the one of those parallel spaces, they don't ever have to move that car. You know, if they're home for the weekend and both cars are parked there, and people are coming to the store.
Right, so,
Yeah.
right.
I think
So-
some of those traffic patterns need to be demonstrated, and that's for
Right,
next
because
month, I guess.
total we were need 23 parking spaces, we provided 6. So we technically were shy 7 parking spaces.
Yeah, I'm not seeing quite the shared parking, how it's gonna be shared, because,
The idea of the parking space, the sharing of the parking is that, most likely the 6 units will not be home, or the 6 apartments, they will not be home during the day.
oh, but so you're saying then during the day, those 6 spaces, a customer to the store could park in one of them?
We had those originally timed, then because we were addressing the issue of what would happen if you're an apartment, we can reverse that and have all of them available.
No,
So
I'm just,
then-
no, I'm just, because it's not shared if it's dedicated for one person's use.
Right, so I don't.
So then I don't see how, maybe it's more of like an issue, I don't see, if we're allowed to reduce the amount of parking based upon a theory that it's shared, I don't see how it's being shared here.
I mean, it might be shared amongst the tenants if they're not marked for the apartments, but that's the only, I mean,
I don't think there should be an expectation that they're not gonna be there during the day. People work from home, right? So I think a lot of those cars are probably gonna be there all the time out of those 6 reserved spots. There's no expectation that they should be gone during the day.
Yeah, I want to be able to come home to my apartment if I live there, and my spot is there, not someone.
I'm sorry, I'm on the Delhi, so we have like 12 parking
Just
lots.
just your name for the record, sir.
I'm sorry?
Just your name for the record.
Javed Iqbal. I'm sorry, what's it?
It's okay, go ahead.
Continue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My name is Javed, I'm on the Delhi. So like, we have 12 parking for apartment is back there. The other parking, that's for Delhi in and out. Some customer come and grab the snack and that stuff. So they just come in and out those.
Yeah, I know that when this has come before us initially, and then every time, I don't know if anyone's here from the neighborhood, but there's just a real parking problem there in this location, and onto Stone.
You've got the tasty table, you've got the dry cleaner, and you've got the lawnmower on the corner, and parking is, I don't know where all the people are coming. I mean, they all park on Stone Avenue, as does the lawnmower business. And so if I have to go to the dry cleaners and I see the sign that says Lipton's parking only, and the people that are adjacent to the existing residential building are using those spaces, there's not a space for me to go to the dry cleaners or to go to your store for that matter, if everything's designated for residents. So I am really concerned about the parking, because I just don't know how all those different uses can be accommodated regardless of the time of day.
Well, we are adding, I mean, all these parking spaces at the rear, I mean, these, right now, they're being used, but all of these are new parking spaces. So we are adding parking spaces.
Well, it's that area in the back where the
Yeah,
truck
this
turns
area,
around
right now, the only park is not even delineated, the only park in this part. So we're adding parking on this side. And again, going back to the idea, the way I understand the idea, like, is because we have 2 different uses, and technically, I notice everybody now is, you've been working from home, so that's what we're trying to address with it, that if one of those, there's a car per apartment that is gonna be home, that at least we were securing or allowing the parking.
Why was it reduced from 20 to 16 parking spots? Is there a rationale for
Because
that?
we allocated this sidewalk, we used to have 4 parking spaces, and we have more parking spaces because we're doing parallel.
One of the previous versions of this, and a comment we made, was that, my understanding is the residential units, the entrance is in the rear.
Yeah.
So there's no entrance from the street. And so if you live there, in order to get to your apartment safely, you would have to walk through traffic you'd have to
Right.
walk through the parking lot.
An active parking lot.
Yeah,
I
and
think it's a great idea.
this addresses one concern, but then it then opens up another concern, which is you're reducing the number of parking spaces. They used to be, and in adding sidewalk, you turn it into parallel parking as opposed to an angled
Yes.
or.
Well, also by trying to follow the parking and allow more maneuvering. Sorry, this area here, the eastern area, between the two properties.
I mean, it kind of speaks to really working maybe with the adjoining property to really kind of have a more of a global view of the parking there. I think that's gonna help. I mean,
Well, that's what we try to accomplish with it. Oh,
especially if you're successful. I mean, more people are coming into the shop now, and if, you know, the existing conditions are sort of a, you know, if it's an F intersection or D intersection, you know, how are we making this better?
I think we added parking to this.
But are you adding, so you have existing 20 spaces. And you wanna go down to 16 spaces.
Yes. No, it's system in the prior, I'm sorry, that should be.
You're adding parking from the prior version, but
Yes.
but even right now, status quo, without even adding 6
Well-
residential units, the parking is strained. And there's 20 spaces, and so now you're gonna add 6 residential spaces, and we're going down to
Presumably 12 cars.
16 residential
Yeah.
units and going down.
Well, the area, okay, we probably can provide you with a, if you look even in the aerial pictures,
Can you?
this.
Can you pull up that? Yeah. Oh, he's there. We used Google Maps at one, that, I think it's
Let me bring up
more
Google
useful,
Maps.
Yeah.
Tracy can pull that up.
Let me pull it up.
But you can see, I mean, that's,
You're there?
I mean, you wanna,
You good with that?
What?
Would you rather see?
Yeah, I'd
it?
rather see it on, I'd rather see if we could.
We're right here anyway. 19 Campwoods?
yes,
Ma'am. There you go.
There it is.
You know, we're tending to see more of these kind of repurposing of these sites where maybe there's like a one-level retail, so I think this is something we want to give more thought to going forward. And, you know, if it's, again, both you and your neighbor kind of discussing a better parking solution that.
but, I mean,
Go away.
doesn't seem to, I mean, there's an issue with this, you know, the parking in Stone Avenue. I mean, we're not adding, if we were adding retail where people will be coming in and out, I understand that. I mean, we added more a residential where, you know, like those parking spaces, I mean, right now the store is not using them.
How many people are actually working? I mean, you can expect there's a minimum of 4 people working in the 2 stores.
2 people were,
Well, that's the upholsterer, and then there's a store owner, maybe.
two there.
Two total?
Yeah, 2 and,
2 in each.
2
Two in each,
yeah.
so that's 4, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
said. So you can expect that there's 4 slots that are gonna be occupied all day long during opening hours. So that reduces even more who can, you know, who can visit and can use the space. So it's,
I mean, what we've seen is, like, some of these parcels closer to the train where it's a transit-oriented development, you probably can make a better argument that, hey, you're probably not gonna need all the parking. You know, this is a neighborhood business district.
Yeah.
You know, this is a challenge that we've had over the years with, you know, people repurposing their properties, so.
But you see that, what I don't see, I understand the issue, I understand the problem of planning. I mean, we're proposing our site and, you know, if it's 2 uses that, I mean, as you can tell in the photo and even there's now, and the other photo, if you show the, you know, the other view, it's like you can see that, I mean, this is during the day. I'm sure if you go down the Stone Avenue, you see all the, you know, the issues that we were discussed before was that, again, access to the parking. We even implemented, putting signs there that such as for Lipton. But it comes down to enforcement. I mean, it comes down to, I mean, if we have people come in and parking there illegally, I mean, all he can do is have a towing truck there. I mean, I don't think the issue is the parking from the unit itself and the store that he generates, is that there's a parking issue in the neighborhood.
And that driveway on the south side, that's to go to the parking.
To the school.
Yeah.
That's not here.
Yeah. It's not an easy solution,
I mean, I see more of this, a scenario where you're talking about shared parking as where one of the uses is not a 24-hour use. And
no, I mean, if you read them.
But like, for instance, you have like two types of commercial uses, like you have offices where people are at in the day, and then you have like a bar that where it's like a night use, an evening use or something like that. But where you have a use like that's residential, theoretically you could have all 6, residents home, and I guess the other part is they're just really not shared because those 6 units are assigned, those 6 spaces are assigned to the units. So.
I guess, okay,
so if you got 6, what you're proposing is 16 spaces.
Yes.
6 of those are for the residential uses only, and then you've got 10 left. Right now, you've got 20 spaces, and it's a strange situation, and you've only got.
But it's not, but that's the thing, it's not, because it's not being utilized, nobody's, I mean, during the day, I mean.
Nobody use it, empty.
And that's the thing.
They're empty with the current uses, the back is empty.
Yeah.
If the 20 parking spaces were being used, then you wouldn't be in the need of adding the additional, income.
No, but you are sharing that spot with, and the tasty table, just so.
No, we don't share that.
Well, I mean, I
The
can
entrance, we should share the
imagine
entrance.
that
Yeah, what's
people
the
will
prevent-
try to park there. Yeah.
Well, but that's, again, it's like, I mean.
But who's going to enforce it?
Right, I mean, it's like the same issue you have with the Stone Avenue, it's like, if people park on Stone Avenue, it's the middle, I mean, how you stop people from parking, they come,
Right, but that's what I'm saying, people are coming to the tasty table, if everything is blocked on Stone Avenue because people are already there, or they're coming to the dry cleaner, they're going to try to park in that spot, and I'm guessing, I mean, I can't,
Yeah, they have a opposite side parking.
that was,
And they have back also.
Well, that belongs to
The
I mean, they
two
can't
tasty
park
table.
there when the synagogue is not using it.
I think, I'm sorry, I should have had but I think the section, I mean, in the past, when we used that section of the code, it's always been residential and like office, residential and retail.
Okay.
I never, we used it in Croton Avenue, we used it, because I thought the intent of this part of the code was to allow for, if you have office space, you have retail, something that, has day activities, and then you have residential, which is mostly, supposedly nightly activity. But I do understand that, things change, and now a lot of people work from home, so. But we're going back to, I think that there's a bigger issue with the parking on Stone Avenue, and I'm not sure that by our client not having his apartment, or, there's a way of resolving this issue, because, so you can tell in these pictures, you can see that the parking, most of the time, the parking is not utilized. I mean, he has those parking spaces in the back. There is an area, from the other side, you see there's an area of the building that's coming out that we will put in the parking. There's an addition right now, where it's used as a storage, and we're taking that out to create more, the back-to-back parking spaces. And again, going back to the reserve parking, I was trying to resolve one problem, I wasn't trying to create another one. So we can.
Is there any way to have the pedestrian entrance to the apartments on the street so that you wouldn't need the sidewalk going around to the back?
It will require a lot of work in the existing building, a reshaping of the existing supermarket, because the reason we put the entrance on the back is not to modify the existing stores. So now we will have to redo the whole supermarket. It will be another expenditure, and also, again, by putting the parking perpendicular to the building, I think you can regain in 2 spaces or 3 spaces, I think, total, by your, again, we create another issue with the parking happen.
So how many spaces do you lose net by putting the sidewalk in?
5.
5.
5?
There's 5,
We
there's
have-
8 here.
No, I have 4, so 4.
4, 5, 6, 7,
4
8.
spaces. I show 8, then now we
Four
have
now.
4.
Or then 4, yeah,
the,
so, okay.
Yeah,
So you're losing 4.
yes.
I mean, when you move 23, that's right. Or 23 is what the code requires.
We can open up to the
I
public.
know
If anyone wants to comment on it. If anybody's here. I mean,
I've used the Lipton's for 30 years. I live on Lakeview off
Could
of
you
High
please
Bridge.
come up and state your name for
Yeah.
the record? Thanks.
Exactly. Bob Corky, 11 Lakeview Road. You don't go food shopping there. You don't do your grocery shopping there. You forget something, you can shoot to Lipton's, they're open. In 30 years, I've never parked in the back. I used to eat at the other luncheonette, I haven't tried the new one yet, but they've always have parking on the side, so I don't know. In fact, some of you might have purchased your Christmas trees, they used to sell Christmas trees in the back of Lipton's. I mean, because it was not used as a parking lot. I agree with Jamie said, if the gentleman had so much business, he wouldn't be talking about apartments. It's not a,
Yeah, it's like,
it's an in and out. If you're in there,
we do like 1,300 a day. That's what's.
If you're in there
That's
more
why
than-
making apartment, you know.
yeah, more
It's
than
hard
two-
to survive.
So we get that.
Just making
Yeah,
it.
It's
very
really
good.
It's a stop, yeah.
Sure, we
Yeah.
get that. I think we probably need to think about that parking some more. If we're ready to really move on this thing. You know, in light of kind of knowing that, you know, it's a sensitive issue on that street because, you know, we've had the Shabbat issues, you know, going back, so.
I mean, it's also just if I can point out, I mean, even if people aren't going to use that parking, if they're parking on Stone, when you have people parking on both sides, particularly like the lawnmower businesses, whatever it is they park there, it's almost impossible to make a left or right turn onto Stone from Camp Woods because a car coming the other way, there's not room for 2 cars, and so there's almost many near accidents. So, I mean, while in fact many people will park on Stone Avenue to use the Tasty Table, it poses a danger in and of itself, but I'm not sure, that's not the purview of this board or you, I'm sure, but if it's a village parking matter or something along those lines, but I do feel it is an issue, and if you're going to increase the number of cars that are at that intersection, I think it will be an issue.
Yeah, just other like logistically in terms of like traffic using these parallel spots. Assume you pull in off the street and you're facing back towards the dumpster, you're gonna have to do a left-hand side parallel park into that space. And then when you're ready to go, you're gonna have to pull into the back, find a place to do a K-turn, and come back around the front, unless you back out somehow. Like I think there's something awkward about these parallel spaces. I know we asked you to put in the sidewalk, but, I don't know.
I think I mean, you have seen both iteration of the design. I mean, some of those maneuvering, it is taken into account when you design the parking space because they are longer than you usually parking space. And yes, it is going to be, you're going to have to come down the bottom and turn.
Whereas right now, you pull in, you make a 90-degree turn towards the building, and then you have room to back into the easement and come forward out of the lot.
I'm not sure which one is safer.
I think we have some things to think about. Mr.
Yeah, I think so. I think we spent a lot of time on this, so maybe we'll kind of adjourn this, and JB, you can come back with some other alternatives. You know, I don't know if it's less units, I don't know what would make that work.
Yeah, I
but
think we
I
already.
think we've got to give that some thought, so.
We will reduce the number of units. I think what's the frustrating part is like, I understand the issue with the parking, but I'm not sure that it's something that we can resolve within our site, or if it is site generated, because it's a neighborhood issue, and there are other business that generate this traffic, and or schools and cannot.
I know it's maybe like more like talking about major redesign, but I think some sort of front entrance or having maybe if you can have an entrance to the apartments from the front and the back, so that the tenants can safely, if they're out on the street, get to the back, like a hallway or something, through the building. Or if they park in the back, they obviously can come straight into that entrance there without having to like put in a sidewalk for that purpose. And then you can keep the parking perpendicular, and we get 4 spaces back.
Right, so it's a trade-off. It's some interior modifications to accommodate traffic, pedestrian access versus trying to kind of maximize and not doing parking, so.
The purpose of this sidewalk is really to accommodate the tenants, because, tenants want to go out for a walk in the neighborhood, they should, they should have a safe route. So if it's through the building, that's,
I will discuss that with the client, and then I guess we will bring it to 19, 20 parking spaces that's closer to, now we're talking about 20 parking spaces.
yeah. And then you serve at least for that, you preserve all the spaces that are along the side of the building, which, as you mentioned, are the ones that people currently use. They're not using the back for Lipton's, they're using the side, or they're parking on the street, so I don't know if it can be done, but.
And I think just from a practical standpoint, if we were to call for a vote now, I don't think it would probably be it doesn't seem to be heading in a direction you want it to, so.
I will discuss with my client about having the, this, I guess the trade-off between having taking the sidewalk out and doing a remodel inside the building.
How much of the first floor is actually being taken out with this proposal, with the entrance in the back?
It's about 400 square feet.
400 square feet. So if you had to go through, you would probably take 800 square feet out. If you had to get an entrance from both sides. I mean, that's, I mean, I can look at it from the applicant's point of view. That's a vast reduction on 2 storefronts that are very small already. So the balance is in between the ambition of trying to, make this viable financially, and also, have the, the ability to do a parking in the back. So of course, if there's more bedrooms, that's an advantage for parking, right? Because if you have a studio, you have to have 1 parking. If you have a 1 bedroom, you have to have 1.2, whatever it is. And the more bedrooms you put into it, relatively fewer spaces do you need. So there's an option, maybe, to make the unit bigger. You took back, so you made the back a duplex.
Yes.
And it's basically a 1 bedroom,
Yes.
right? Okay, so you don't have, well, since you're
It's
doing.
2 bedrooms.
You're doing.
The old 2 bedrooms.
It is 2 bedrooms?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'd have a bigger unit, but not if it were a studio or 1 bedroom, that's reduction in the demand.
You could
for parking.
reduce some of that, and I know that you want to do modular, but there should be a way so that you can do modular where you don't have to, repeat the floor plan on both floors. So, working with some creativity in the levels.
Well, I think as you see, like I said, we already, by reducing the back, we already created these duplexes, so.
Right,
There's
yeah.
another to change.
So, but if you reduce or if you change the configuration of the apartments to reduce the number, I mean, just do the math. You say, so many spaces we need versus so many bedrooms, and find the gold mean. I mean, that's where I would go if I was designing this.
And that's, again, it's not our place to tell you how to design the
No,
buildings. We're just gonna tell you, I think where it sits right now, we're probably not comfortable with moving forward, so.
I was gonna say, and over what we saw before, this is a really big improvement.
Yes, I agree.
That was gonna be my question.
Yeah, no, this
It
is.
is.
Because I wanna, if we go back and redesign and create an entrance to the front, get back this parking spaces.
No, I like where this is going.
Okay.
I agree.
Could I just ask one question about the design since I'm new to it? Could you perhaps just bring an elevation that shows that in relationship to the existing building on the corner? I mean, or could you tell me how much higher?
Yes, we can do that because I know that we looked, and I'm sorry we didn't show that here because when we're concerned about the height, we did look that, I know across the street is much higher.
Right,
I'm
but
not
that's
sure.
really, it's just that one, that blue building is the only one that has the same height. I don't think anything.
No, actually it's
These also
higher.
higher.
Those are
But
much
they're set back
higher.
from the street much further than this would be?
Yes.
Right. I think JB said there were 2 stories, there would be 2 stories added to the
Yes.
front with a roof, and then the back would appear as
I will-
4.
I can show you.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
That'd be helpful. Okay, so with your permission, we'll turn this to the next one.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Okay,
JP, don't leave.
last one, right? 25 Cedar Lane?
25 Cedar Lane.
Yeah. The floor remains yours. Get that one off there. And then, again, for clarification, this is North Highland, so that is the, I think that's, what's the zoning? Is that NC?
This is NC,
Okay.
NC2.
This was a parcel that house fronts Cedar Lane, and it was subdivided, and a lot sits on North Highland in the NC2.
Yeah, actually, right, there's an aerial view, so we should talk about Meyer Furniture here, and this is the lot. So, in a prior version of this application, there was a subdivision made, so the 25 Cedar, that's why you see the address, there's an existing house on the front, and so this was converted into, subdivided into 2 lots. So this is about a 12,000 square foot lot, and again, what we're proposing here is not to 8 apartments. So we're doing 8 apartments. So this will have a bakery and some office space at the bottom. We have, I believe it's 18 parking spaces, and we are complying with the requirements. In this building, some of the parking spaces are underneath the building.
So none of that has changed since last time?
Well, we did submit some, right, that hasn't changed, it didn't get reviewed the last time, so
Right,
that's
because
why.
this is all we got today, right? Yeah.
But this, you still have that, because this is one of the projects been in front of the board
Yeah,
twice.
no, I'm
and we
just
were-
saying, there's
Okay.
nothing else that has changed. in
No,
terms
we
of
should
the-
change some
in
of the
terms
elevations,
The plot
yes.
and the,
Yeah, so, I will leave Mr. Morgado's here. Mr. Morgado's wife will have a bakery down here. This will be the residential entrance, so this will be the bakery in the first floor. And then we have the main entrance, and we have an elevator, and this is like the cover area. And this will be 2 levels which represent 4 apartments each.
What's the apartment mix?
The apartment mix, so we have 6 and 2, right?
Yes, 6 and 2.
6 and 2.
6, we say 6.
6 2-bedrooms.
6 2-bedroom, 2
And 2 1-bedrooms. And I know that this will fall in the, one of the bedroom will be affordable.
Yes.
Yeah.
For 1 unit.
For 1 unit, yeah. So this, we went more with the Highland Avenue, or, we took some of the, not so much residential, but we brought in some of the stucco. We used metal roof for the finishes, and we have some stone veneer or brick at the bottom. So, I'm trying to see what we have there.
So in addition, are we also gonna do an engineer, we need to do engineering on this?
Yeah, I forwarded down to the village engineer for review, and if it feel that it needs to go for a further review, we'll send it out to
Bring
consultant.
Keller session?
Yeah. This does have a curb cut on the state highway.
Right, so this will involve DOT, we're gonna have a curb cut with the highway. These are some pictures of the existing site. This is pictures of the neighborhood, and this is right across the street. So this is the site, and I thought it was important to get this picture now, because now that we have no leaves, you can really tell. And this is the house in the back, this is 25 Cedar. And this is that would be the side of the building. And these are the adjacent houses.
You're putting in a retaining wall like the.
Well, this is
Similar,
why,
yeah.
very similar to that, that would be,
Pretty significant excavation, you guys are gonna be pulling a lot of fill out of there, I guess, to
Yes.
get to the street level?
yes. We have I believe, a 5% slope when we finish. So the retaining wall, I think we're proposing as the veneer we do have is very similar to what you see a couple buildings down.
What's the existing slope naturally?
Existing slope is about 8 to 10%. There's parts of the slope that is higher, but we are moving, it's probably more than 2,500 yards we're going to be removing. So if you look at our site plan, what we have done is we have created two-tier walls, so we don't look at, we're trying to reduce the height of those walls. So they're not as like the walls you saw before in the picture, we're trying to avoid that. So we're creating two-tier walls, and we will landscape in between.
Is this basically as of right, I mean, do you have any variance
No
requirements
variance
here?
requires, we comply with parking, we comply with zoning, there's no, like I said, we're gonna provide one apartment for affordable, so everything is within coverage, everything is as of right.
I'm just a little turned around here. Proposed front elevation, is it the street?
Yeah,
That is the street? Okay.
yeah. And the reason we wanted to show the cars, so you can see that there's part of the parking that's underneath the second floor.
Right, that's,
So
yeah.
the commercial component is, footprint is much smaller than the apartments in itself.
Right.
And we comply with the height of the building.
Is it just how this, I mean, I'm assuming that the roofs don't have a slant going out, right? I mean, it's just because this elevation shows.
Yes, it will be a flat roof. This is like a fascia, something like a mansard roof type of.
Right.
We show that as you can
But
see here.
Yeah, I mean, the gables are, you don't do anything different. You're not having the gables come out. They're
No,
just following
right.
the plane.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's just a funny way to.
Can you show the floor plan for the office again? It's the first, the ground floor. So, yeah, so all this parking is covered?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is your entrance for the
Horses.
apartments to get to the elevator?
Yes.
Offices in the rear?
Mhm.
And this thing that sticks up here is what?
That is basically one of those elements that you see, like
One of those
like
elements?
fascia, like a gable end, one of those gable end on the top.
Okay, so this is a gable end, so it's just showing it like flipping up into the air?
Yes.
Okay, so there's something funky there. All right. got
Yes,
it.
so this element basically.
Yeah, I thought it was me, I don't know what
No,
I
this
thought
is
it was.
it's basically this element on the side.
All right.
The side view of the element.
Mechanical
So you
equipment?
butterflied the roof. Okay.
Mechanical equipment is within the structure, or you're gonna have it on
Yes.
the roof?
No, I don't think it's gonna be all within the structure.
And along North Highland, are we gonna have a sort of a planting strip? Are we gonna have a sidewalk?
Yes,
talk
the
about
building
it?
is recessed. Let me go back to the side plan.
Because we're not looking at architecture so much tonight, it's sort of just like site plan at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hopefully we get comments on architecture as well, so we wanted to, so this whole area is landscape.
Right, and is this the sidewalk?
That is the sidewalk, yeah. So the property in itself is, you know.
So the front is parallel, the
front is parallel to Highland.
parallel to the street, but so it creates like an angle.
Yeah,
And these are the property corners, I guess, right?
yes.
And then the building sits 10 feet back?
So 10 feet back in the front, in the NC1, we don't actually need side yard variance, side yard setbacks, but we do have like a foot or two.
You're having a little retaining, like a half wall or something? There.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
which in actuality, after the leaves have fallen down and we see them, the neighboring property, we may not need that retaining wall.
So you don't have anything to show, just in 3 dimensions, what that front corner, that acute angle is gonna look like?
You mean
I mean, just here, but what this corner. the
Like a
front-
vector view or something? Do you have a vector for that?
yeah, we can provide you with like 3D view of that corner.
So we've got like a west view, which is that front, and then I guess the north
Are
view.
you required to make it parallel to the road because of the requirement of the zoning, or is that's just
No,
aesthetics?
we thought actually, we started to do some, in the floor plan, as you can tell, we're trying to, in the top level, we're trying to do some design work where we now parallel to the street. So that creates, perhaps in a 3D will show better, that creates like a little,
Sort of a
You're
step.
creating a stack right here.
Yeah.
yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I would like to see that.
Because we're trying to not to have that one flat surface going across, so that's why it has that indentation to.
So
I'm
just
just curious if it's gonna like seem like it's sort of protruding in like a sharp point out towards.
No, because we have these openings and it's more like a fin looking from the outside, maybe from this side, we may have that fin,
I mean, like even the apartments on the second floor all the way to the left, those are gonna have that sharp angle.
but, yes. But in the apartment itself, I mean, these units, I don't think that those angles affect the units, I mean, actually,
So that extreme left there, that JB, that's cantilever, that piece?
we can do some nice
Don't ask for
interior.
interior designer
I can
about
do
that.
some nice interior
It's gonna be a
decoration there.
nightmare to put furniture in there.
It's a challenge, not a nightmare.
There's some bean bags. Is this just cantilever here off to the side, or is there any
Yes.
structural support coming down, or it's pretty much all?
Most likely now, the structure, the supports are here, Mike. You see here, we have these columns,
It's got the.
Yeah.
these,
Okay.
so there will be, so there is cantilever about 2 feet or 3 feet, but those are support columns.
Does the house on Cedar Lane stay, or is that, I was confused?
Yes, it better stay, that's where I sleep.
Oh, okay. All right, then.
You guys gonna create a walkway between the house and?
And the bakery?
This
This is it, you just want your morning breakfast?
Well, my wife's commute is gonna be short.
Okay.
Zip line.
The structure, is that gonna be frame, what's, you guys?
We're going
modular?
modular as well on this,
Okay.
yes.
And the exterior again, is it gonna be an ephes?
It's gonna be
stucco,
a combination.
Real
of
stucco, or?
EFS, and we have a stone veneer at the bottom, and we have like a metal slim roof on the top. And most likely it'll be a flat roof on the top.
No, we're already in, I can take a visual.
Right, I know, it's kinda like.
Yeah, it's hard to, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just hard to, it's hard.
To separate.
I generally like it, like, but I think it's just hard to visualize what that's gonna look like, given the,
So we will, that's not, right, we can provide that.
So for your next trip back, just bring some more
3D.
enhanced elevations,
Or
vectors.
Yeah, just so that,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay.
Any questions, anybody else have any questions, or? Questions from the public, if public chooses to comment?
My name is Pedro Silva, 125 Main Street.
Can you
I have
please
to be
step?
there?
Yeah, please.
It's a great project. I hope it is able to be true. It's a nice entrance from north side of Asning. It's beautiful, got parking, no issues. I think it's just go forward. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Jay, with your permission, we'll adjourn for next month. Okay. Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes everything on the agenda.
The formal part.
Formal part, so.
Jamie, do you need a break?
What about Mary Ann? Just now?
We did that one.
Do we want to approve minutes and then,
Fine.
go to the.
can we do it without,
Yeah, that's gonna be a challenge, right?
Actually, you have to hold until next month.
Okay.
You only have
One
four.
short, yeah.
You need four to do the minutes.
have to be 4 of us who are here last time.
Right, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
We needed one of our alternates to come back, maybe. Can they still give us a proxy?
We can just,
So we'll hold over.
Narragansett was approved.
What was that?
Narragansett was approved.
Oh, yes, okay, yeah, okay.
So we'll hold over minutes till next month because we don't have quorum for that. And then the next item is a formal discussion regarding 80 Main Street. So are we still on camera or are we go off camera for the?
No, we can have it, we can stay on camera.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Hugo Subotowski. I'm co-owner and I was the architect of 80 Main Street. For the benefit of all the members of the board, I think the only member of the board that was here when this was done was Mr. Lari. I think that I see all the new faces. So I think Mr. Khan was here. But let me give you a little bit of a background of the building. This is a brand new building. There was approved the site plan in about 3-4 years ago. We built the building, we built it modular, and as you see here, on the westerly side of the building, there was an existing retaining wall. The building is a building for seniors consisting of 25 apartments, 32 parking lots. And when we designed the building and we built it, the wall that now had collapsed, created some concerns, and our engineer, since there was not too much information on the wall, so he suggested like, don't put any surcharge on that wall. All surchargeable buildings normally go 45 degrees. So he said, why don't we forget about that? Let's go with the foundations all the way down to rock. So it was an expensive proposition because we thought rock was about 20 feet down and the foundations normally have to go only 4 feet. We were creating a crawl space. and we had to do a complete basement and go down the rock. Fortunately today, otherwise that building will slide down with the collapse of the wall. The only information that we had on the wall was the plans that they are now with the village. The wall was not built exactly according to plans. So in addition to go to rock, we provided a complicated drainage system because you know how hydrostatic pressure works in walls, like a swimming pool, try to pull out. So to alleviate that hydrostatic pressure on the wall, we didn't want the roof of all the water that comes to the roof of our building to surcharge the soil, saturate the soil with heavy rains, and put a surcharge on the wall. So we created a new complex drainage system that goes to the easterly side of the building into a catch basin that was inspected by the village. And if you go there today, you're going to see that we put all type of pipes to replace the drainage system that collapsed with our rear yard. Our rear yard had collapsed completely with the wall. And in order to minimize damage or to prevent more damage, we now put a temporary drainage system that goes into the catch basin as the old drainage system that we have. So what we are here now, we are trying to reach our neighbor down below the hill on 60 Main Street to see if together we can find a common solution that will make everybody happy. In the meantime, the building complies with code. As we stated with the building inspector, we want to occupy the building. We had another accident since the building was unoccupied. A pipe bursted and water was running all night and ruined a couple of apartments which we are fixing up now. And what we are proposing now is, in order to occupy the building, what we want to do now is to build a temporary deck to recoup that outdoor area that we lost, because now everything is like a hill when the wall collapsed. In order to make it easier for you to understand, this was the condition of the building, and this is the wall that had collapsed. When this wall collapsed, we lost all this rear yard. Basically, the building comes down and it's a hill, okay? And then it goes to the typical angle of response of the soil, which is stable. We had 2 engineering firms analyzing our building. Fortunately, the building is stable because it's into rock. And what we are proposing to replace this area that we lost, which is part of the recreation area of the building, we propose to build like a temporary deck, which does not alter the aesthetics of the building or anything else. The only thing that obviously is altered, not voluntarily, of course, is the rear yard, because we lost the rear yard because of the collapse. Okay. So this is basically what we are proposing, and we like you to analyze so we can get the building permit to build this deck.
So, one question I have right off the bat is this going to go away once the retaining wall is reconstructed? Or is the intention for this to stay permanently?
Well, it's a very good question, but it's a very tough question to answer because that will depend on how we solve the issue with our neighbor. If we can get to a solution, okay, that we can build either a step wall or if they want to rebuild their wall and we will fill up again our yard, okay, then there is not going to be any need to have this deck. If the solution is to build maybe like a step wall, so we can build half of the wall in our property, they can build half of the wall in their property also. Maybe the deck will look good, it will stay because it will look really nice. Okay.
So in essence, we're gonna review this, but then potentially down the road, when the two neighbors figure out how they're gonna fix that wall, we're also gonna have to probably look at some sort of a terraced thing, so we are gonna look at this again a few more times, it sounds like.
We will have to come back to the board, okay, for a new site plan review, because the condition has changed. If we fill this up, then the deck will disappear, the site plan will be exactly as it was before, then it will be no need to come back. But in the event that we build, let's say, a step wall down, they will build half of the wall in our property, and then they can build, okay, half of the wall that they had before, because they don't need to build the wall that tall in the property, then this deck will really look good. So it will be a pity just to tear it down. But I do not have now an honest answer for you.
All right, so one last question, then
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
pass off to the other board members. The parking area to the left, to the north of the building, is that stable?
Stable,
Is there
yeah.
any
That's-
concern about
no.
that coming down?
No, that slope is there, it's stable.
And that's beyond where this retaining wall collapsed, that's sort of
Yeah,
what
that
tied
was
with
the
the
end
other
of it.
old
Yeah,
existing granite or whatever's there that's.
That was the end of the retaining wall, and that is a slope, that is a natural slope that was there for, I don't know, 100 years, and it's completely stable.
And I know you rebuilt the wall that was pushing out, going towards Main at that corner, so that is stable. Question to you, how wide is this deck
12
going to
feet.
be?
12 feet.
12 feet, so that's really going to the point where there is soil now, right?
No,
It's further or
no.
less?
The soil was going for about, I think, 20-something feet up to the
Yeah,
property
and
line.
what is currently left?
Nothing.
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 So the deck is gonna be tied into.
The deck is gonna be overhanging like a balcony. Overhanging of the building, and the reason I did that,
It's gonna be a cantilever.
it's gonna be a cantilever, correct, exactly.
Yes.
The reason I did that is because we can build that deck from inside the building.
Okay.
I don't wanna put anybody in that hill, because putting somebody in that hill with machinery is really very, very dangerous, okay? And the ideal situation will be if we can get to an agreement with our neighbor and he let us build that through his property, because we can put machines going up, but we can, but putting a machine from upstairs going down in that hill is suicidal. I mean, we wouldn't do that. So I designed a deck that we can bring the beams into our basement, okay, cantilever them, and then nobody has to touch that hill.
Okay.
In addition, it will look very good.
I personally haven't.
We had a meeting recently, planning director, myself, the building inspector, with Mr. Subotovsky. One of the questions was the question the chair asked about the stability of the parking area. I'm going to be provided with a letter to that effect. And so this is in the process. I just want to make one comment in terms of the cause of the retaining wall collapse. One, it's not before the board, and that's an issue in dispute. So I just want that to be clear. The issue here is, and something we discussed, although the building itself has not changed, the site plan has changed, because essentially 26 feet of property on that side is gone. So that essentially requires that it's, so that's why with the planning director's discussion, they would come back to this board with a formal application to do that. The building inspector has indicated he would want that approval from this board in order to issue the permit to allow the structure to be put up. So that's basically why we wanted to at least get it before you folks tonight informally to see what the thought was with regard to E.
And VAR approval.
And VAR for it, yeah.
Yes, if it's not pushing too much, if we can get an authorization to give the building inspector, okay, to go ahead and give us the building permit, that really will help, because we are really in a huge financial stress with this here. The bank does not want to convert the construction loan to permanent, so basically we have to go to
I think the challenge here is this is an informal. If it were formal, then I could probably say the need, the urgency.
I see.
I think we're kind of challenged here because it's informal right now. Believe me, I really feel for you because it sounds like you've had nothing but challenges. all
No,
along.
this is been going on since August, okay, and we have no income, we have no people in the building.
I mean, we can't really, what would it do? What would expedite it for us to say that we give a conditional approval? Nothing really, right? Because you would have to come back.
Well, unless what this board would have decided, you could conduct a special meeting if he were to get an
That-
application in,
Right.
and then you could do that.
We just have to have
basically.
the notification.
You just have to
time.
notice and
Right.
have time for
So,
that.
what does the building department need?
The building department, because we discussed it with the building inspector, because this is an amended site plan approval. What he would be looking for is that this board would give that site plan approval. It would be at a meeting, and at that point, it'd be noticed. And if the board approved it, then he could issue the building permit, because in fact, that's in line with the code. His preference would be, he'd rather not just issue the permit without, because it is effectively a site plan. And it's a major change to what is there. So, and we've had discussions, I've had discussions with Mr. Subotovsky about this. and that's
With
what
or
it is.
without the deck, can that process just happen? I mean, is
The building
deck-
inspector is, to be perfectly blunt, he is loath to issue a building permit on a site plan, and essentially a site plan amendment, you're not supposed to issue a permit before the amendment is granted.
And not only that, there's a back entrance there, which now can't be used. And I mean.
No, there is no back entrance.
There is no door going out to the back there?
There was just a convenient door in the basement, which we agree with the building inspector and Mr. Khan, that we're gonna block this door.
Okay.
And they're gonna fence that whole area.
Right, the only thing in the back was like basically a concrete sidewalk to that, which
That's it.
again.
Right,
is-
to that particular
Correct.
door,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
so
it.
that's what I remember.
And it was a
yeah.
convenience door to access of the building. They added that access
I'm
to
just
the
still
basement.
confused about where this deck, proposed deck will, so they're gonna propose to put this deck on, and we will do an amended site plan, and then everything they have is in line?
It would be in line with the amendment. Everything else is the same. I mean, what happened is that they lost that 26 feet on that
We also
side.
have to do an
You'd have
architectural
to,
review,
yeah,
we
of
have to
course.
do all of that.
We could be coterminous, do both at the
Right.
same
I
time.
mean, and I think it's only a matter of whether you can get the plan to us, right? Fast enough so that we could do a meeting
And then notice.
in between,
I
right?
can get you the plans.
Because
You
because
tell
we
me when, and
could
you tell me when, and I will do it.
we could technically approve both at the same
Just
meeting.
whatever notice has to be given though.
10 days.
10-day notice.
Yeah.
10 days puts us in the beginning of February, so
February 5th.
if it's something where we have something right after, a 5 o'clock meeting or something like that, where,
This may not be a true story, but this is what I've heard. That the back of the building, the width of whatever that is, got to be able to handle a fire truck to come back. No?
The building, and as I discussed with the building inspector, it's only one, okay, face facing a 20-foot open area. This building has 3 faces of open area. If this side, if I build this building, and let's say that the wall wasn't there, ever, and this was just a hill, I could build this building exactly like this. This fire area required is, we provide a fire area of 9,000 square feet. The permitted is 12,000, and because the building has a sprinkler, I can go to 24,000. And I only need one side accessible for firefighting. And we do have that because we have the north, we have the east, and we have the west. The fire truck doesn't have to go and never was intended to go through that side. And we did agree on that with the building inspector, and he asked me for a letter and all the calculations, which obviously I will give him.
I think we have to defer to the building inspector there if you felt that the fire department needed to opine on this modification. So that, I think that should be also part of this. just
But the-
cover all
the-
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 We've
the
asked for a
12
letter, in fact, and Mr. Subotovsky has indicated he will provide that letter.
We did
And we'll go to
provide,
the
yeah, we
building
did
inspector.
provide a letter by our engineer, and we designed the deck. The 12 feet is not just capricious. I mean, the 12-foot deck was designed in a way that the fire department required a 30-degree ladder and have another 2 feet, okay, in the back for firefighters to be able to walk through. So that's where the dimension of 12 feet comes from.
I mean, the only other thought is when you drive up, Lower Main, you see this sort of landslide. Give some thought maybe to.
We did. Excellent, that's an excellent question.
Dressing up that site.
Yes.
There's some suggestions that the planner
We
has,
did.
work with her.
We did, and we are gonna fence dividing both properties. We're gonna fence it out, we're gonna fence on top also, so nobody, obviously, the hill is not a hazard. And we are talking actually with the landscaper now to be able to, in the meantime, to landscape on that, because to rent a building has to look good. If the building is gonna look the way it is now, okay, nobody's gonna rent. So we are going to do that, and then we'll do two things. First, okay, is beautification, okay, which I'm sure that the village is very eager to get. And second, vegetation stabilize the soil. So that soil will be stabilized with vegetation. Yes, that's a very question, and we're already in the works with that.
All right, so possibly on the positive side, you could be in here before next month and we have a special meeting to do something, or worst case scenario, you're here end of February.
I have the 12 plants here already, so I haven't ready tonight.
So it's really kind of the purview of the board.
I mean, it's not a good situation, and
Yeah.
I
No,
know
it's not.
it's sort of like trying to save something out of something bad.
Yeah.
Make something good out
Yeah.
of something, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm amenable for a meeting for this.
You tell me when do I have to make the application.
Call the board tomorrow and I'll just.
Yeah, so we'll do that. I mean, there's a requirement to get a 10 days worth of advertising done,
Right.
so,
And get a
Fair enough.
comfortable quorum.
yeah, okay.
So
We'll be in touch with you tomorrow so we can set the dates up.
That would be great. I really appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
If I may, I do represent the homeowner or the property owner at 60 Main Street, the property below. Robert Corky, introduce myself. How you doing?
Nice meeting you.
I have just one comment. Obviously, it's a terrible hardship on both parties. It's 60 as well as 80, not something that anyone planned. I heard about the plan recently, and my comment was, obviously they can do whatever they can to help maximize their income and to keep their property going. That's not my interest. My concern, if you've been to that site, is that this is a dangerous site. I mentioned to Mr. Kahan when I heard this, my concern is safety. There are no fences there now stopping you from being in that parking lot and the kid going and winding up on Main Street. If you've been there, you see that it's rubble, concrete, and rebar. If you fall there, you will be impaled. My concern here, when I heard it, I asked a colleague who's a fire chief in another jurisdiction, what do you think about this? I said, how high is it? He says, 3 stories. 3 stories. She did a 30-foot, 12 to 15 feet. He says, and then you're going to have a fireman going on this ladder, carrying their hose at their pack up there, and if there was a fire this last weekend, and there was water flying about, it would have frozen, and you'd have firemen on an ice rink. If they can do it, God bless them. My concern is the liability. For my client, the fireman falls off his deck, he's going to wind up at 60 Main Street impaled. And that fireman's going to be bringing an action against my client. I'm just putting that out there as notice, that I believe I know they're trying very hard to come up with a solution to this. My only concern is safety. If a kid gets back there and climbs, that's what kids do, and they fall off that, you ask what it's like, you're just hanging out there. If this goes out 12 or 15 feet, there's nothing between you and winding up on Main Street. And so that's my concern, and I'm just putting that out to the board. Safety. If they could come up with a way, they could get their building open, probably make my negotiation with them a lot easier. Right now, it's just a mess for everybody involved, and I can tell you honestly, I don't foresee a very ready solution to this. We have engineers, as they have engineers. I understand the village is hiring engineers. We have engineers all over the place, and it's coming up with some way of resolving this
Right, well,
problem.
they're here tonight to get some guidance and we take action.
That's
So,
right, I appreciate that.
We'll describe the plan. I think, hearing what you're saying about this access, I mean, the applicants here are you telling me that there's nothing blocking?
There was nothing when I was there about 8 days ago. If you walked onto the back, if you walked onto the parking lot, right where you have the catch basin, you could take 2 more steps and go down. I notified Stuart of that as soon as I went to the site.
All right, well, no one's in the building now.
No, but kids can walk
I
there.
understand, so we don't have to worry about residents per se. but
Walk
I
out my
think-
backyard and fall off the cliff. Like, this is
Mr.
crazy.
Cork is absolutely right, okay? And Mr. Khan had delivered his message to me. I went there today and I saw what, we contacted the management company, we told them we want to install a fence here, okay, between the building and the parking lot. So if anybody goes in that parking lot, we told them it should be there, but that doesn't mean that somebody could be there, okay, can go down the hill, he's absolutely right. And I met with the management company today and I told them what you guys did, which is just put like one of those orange plastic.
Orange caution tape.
Yeah,
No.
so
Stop
that's
anybody.
that's not
Keep
acceptable.
me up all night.
Yeah, so I said, that's not acceptable, okay? So I instructed the management company to put like a chain link fence there so nobody can. In one more thing I want to tell Mr. Carr, okay, we are, as I said before, we are going to do not only landscaping, but we are going to do a fence, so nobody, not a firefighter, nobody in the deck, no kid, nobody will fall, if they fall from there, on his property. It will fall in our property.
Okay, so we are still informal, but if you want to
Can I
come
say something?
address the.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you pull up Google Maps, please, and go to 26 State Street? I think it's remarkably disrespectful for him to stand up here and talk about how his building has sprinklers when his building blocks fire access to my house. And I'm hoping that this will show for you guys that there's literally no access, the way he built his building, to put out a fire in my home. I don't have sprinklers. I've been trying to get access to these engineers' reports. I've put in a FOIL request with the building department. I've emailed your company. I need somebody to please give me the engineer report so I don't have to hire a personal engineer at my expense because of everybody else's negligence.
You tell me what you need and I will give it to you.
Please give me your email because I've emailed Danielle at your company.
What is what you need?
I need the engineer's structural reports. I have people who can read them. I just need them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I give you my card.
That's your home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the wall that existed that came down.
So that's my house. That right next to
Which
it,
house?
yeah, right there.
Mhm.
So that whole wall came down and it has consistently fallen back closer to the building. So since August, it's moved back like a number of feet. So now it's actually underneath his building. His building extends past that wall. And on top of which, they've put out all this like white sheeting and cones and caution tape that with all the wind we're having, it's keeping me up all night long. Like, it's crazy. I've put in complaints to Kevin. I've asked him to come
So
to take down the caution tape,
Well,
everything.
that's why we talked about that, trying to stabilize the bank. And
Sure.
I think, you know, the applicant's mentioned he's gonna have his.
And the stuff is blowing off, so all those big white sheets of tape, of like paper stuff, are blowing into my yard. I'm carrying them out every single day. I'm right there, so I am sitting back there, and if you can see, the access to my house is from State Street, which you can't even see on this map.
Where are you?
I'm where that dot is.
And it's quite steep, actually.
It's on a
It's
cliff.
very, yeah.
Where are you?
So,
Here,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Where are you?
I'm right here.
I just want
I'm right here.
I just want the board to know, and I'm sure the chair recalls, the site plan was approved. The issues of access were discussed at the prior time that this was approved. I'm not disputing anything you're saying, Leah. I just wanted to understand.
Yeah, I don't think we want to revisit, renegotiate, or
That's right, that was all.
re-argue.
I just want to make that clear to the board
I
members.
think our task at hand here is really to get this thing stabilized and get this thing as back to normal as we can.
So it's cool if my building burns down. You all take that liability. Awesome. Thank you.
What's the name?
Yeah.
Email me and I will email you the engineer report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, with that being said, I think we're gonna adjourn the meeting. Call for a motion to adjourn? Kaya? And
Adjourn
second?
the meeting. Second.
We got a second over here.
Second, good.
Micah, thanks. All right, great. All in favor?
Aye.